A story of vengeance, hidden power, and the Alpha King who saw her worth when no one else did. The silver veil concealed everything but Lucy's eyes, and that was deliberate. She stood at the entrance of the Moonfall Banquet Hall, her heartbeat measured, her breathing controlled, while the scent of roasted meat and aged wine drifted through the air like ghosts of a life she'd left behind. The hall stretched before her in golden light, packed with alphas draped in ceremonial furs, betas crowned with moonstone circlets, and omegas serving drinks with downcast eyes. 3 years. 3 years since she'd walked through these doors as nothing. As less than nothing. Tonight, she returned as something they couldn't name yet, but would soon fear. The mark on her collarbone burned beneath the silk of her gown. Not with pain. With power. The mating bond thrummed like a second pulse, connecting her to the one man in this world who had never once looked at her with pity. Lincoln Blackthorne. The Alpha King. Her husband. Her weapon. And tonight, he was watching. Lucy felt his gaze before she saw him, a thread of molten steel pulling taut across the distance between them. He sat at the head of the hall on a throne carved from blackwood and bone, his presence so commanding that even the rowdiest wolves fell silent when his eyes moved. He didn't smile, didn't nod. He simply existed, and the room bent around him. But his attention wasn't on the crowd. It was on her. Hey, beautiful souls. Lucy's inner voice whispered as she stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. Welcome back to another story. Wherever you're watching from, drop your city or country in the comments below. I love knowing where my pack is scattered across the world. Her lips curved beneath the veil. And if you haven't subscribed yet, well, you're about to witness something unforgettable. Hit that button. You won't regret it. The crowd parted as she moved, wolves instinctively making way for the veiled woman who carried herself like royalty. Whispers followed her like the train of her gown. Who is she? Why does she wear the king's colors? That mark on her neck, is that? Lucy didn't answer. She didn't even glance their way. Her eyes locked on one man across the hall. Rykon Ashford. He stood near the wine table, laughing too loud, his arm draped over a blonde omega who gazed at him like he'd hung the moon. He wore his beta rank like a crown, his chest puffed, his chin high. The same man who'd once whispered promises in her ear. The same man who'd called her weak when she needed him most. The same man who'd stood by while the pack tore her apart. He hadn't seen her yet. But he would. Lucy's fingers brushed the edge of her veil as she moved deeper into the hall, weaving between tables where wolves drank and boasted and celebrated alliances that meant nothing in the face of true power. The air smelled like smoke and dominance, like sweat and ceremony. And beneath it all, fear. They didn't know why the Alpha King had come tonight. Lincoln rarely attended these gatherings. His reputation alone kept the packs in line. But tonight, he'd arrived with a veiled woman at his side, and no one dared ask who she was. Lucy felt the bond tighten as she neared the throne. Lincoln's dark eyes tracked her every step, his jaw set, his hands resting loosely on the arms of his seat. He looked calm, controlled, but she felt the storm brewing beneath his skin. Lucy. The voice cut through the noise like a blade. She stopped, turned. Rykon stood 3 feet away, his smile sharp, his eyes narrowed as he took in the veil, the gown, the way she held herself. He didn't recognize her. Not yet. But something about her stance, the refusal to shrink, the way she met his gaze without flinching, set his teeth on edge. You're blocking the path, he said, his tone dripping with entitlement. Move. Lucy tilted her head. Said nothing. Rykon's smile faltered. Did you hear me? Still, she didn't speak. Didn't bow. Didn't step aside. The hall began to quiet. Wolves turned, sensing the shift in energy. The blonde omega at Rykon's side tugged his sleeve nervously, but he shook her off, his pride flaring hot and stupid. I don't know who you think you are, Rykon said, stepping closer, but in this pack, omegas bow to betas. So unless you want to embarrass yourself, she is not your Omega. Lincoln's voice rolled through the hall like thunder before a storm. Every head turned. Every breath held. The Alpha King rose from his throne, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He moved with the kind of grace that came from centuries of dominance, his black coat trailing behind him like a shadow. His eyes, silver in the firelight, fixed on Rykon with the precision of a predator choosing its prey. "She is my mate," Lincoln said quietly. "And if you value your life, you will step back." Rykon froze. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. "Your mate?" Lincoln didn't repeat himself. The bond between them pulsed, and Lucy felt Lincoln's question in her mind, soft as a caress, sharp as a blade. "Do you want me to kill him now, or do you want to play first?" She almost smiled. But Rykon, stupid, arrogant Rykon, made his choice. "That's impossible," he said, his voice rising. She can't be." And then his eyes dropped to the mark on Lucy's collarbone, barely visible above the neckline of her gown. The Alpha King's mark. Recognition slammed into him like a freight train. His mouth opened, closed. His hand twitched at his side. "You," he whispered. "You're Lucy." She spoke her own name like a verdict. And then Rykon, in his shock, in his rage, in his absolute inability to accept that the woman he'd destroyed now stood above him, he raised his hand and slapped her. The crack of his palm against her cheek echoed through the Moonfall Banquet hall like a gunshot. The room went silent. Not a breath. Not a movement. Not a sound. Lucy's head had turned with the force of it, her veil slipping just enough to reveal the red mark blooming across her skin. But she didn't cry out. Didn't stumble. She straightened. Slowly. And smiled. Because she felt it, the bond between her and Lincoln igniting like wildfire. The Alpha King had felt the slap through their connection. And the reckoning had begun. The silence stretched for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then Lincoln moved. He didn't rush. Didn't roar. The Alpha King simply descended the steps from his throne with the inevitability of death itself, each footfall deliberate, each breath controlled. But every wolf in the hall felt the shift, the air thickening, the temperature plummeting, the primal instinct screaming run even as their bodies locked in place. Lucy touched her cheek where Rykon's hand had landed, her fingers coming away clean but burning. She could taste copper in her mouth, not from blood, but from the rage boiling in her veins. Rage she'd buried for 3 years. Rage she'd learned to sharpen into something cold and patient. Through the bond, she felt Lincoln's fury like a living thing. It wrapped around her ribs, squeezed her lungs, whispered promises of violence in a language older than words. "Let me," his voice growled in her mind. "Let me tear him apart." "Not yet," she answered. "Let them see who I am first." Lincoln stopped 5 feet from Rykon, his silver eyes fixed on the beta who now stood frozen, his hand still raised, his face draining of color as the reality of what he'd done crashed over him. "You struck my mate," Lincoln said softly. Too softly. In front of witnesses. Under the sacred moon. At a banquet meant to honor peace. Rykon's mouth opened. No sound came out. Lincoln tilted his head, and the gesture was so predatory that several wolves at the nearest tables pushed back their chairs, ready to bolt. "Do you know what pack law says about such an offense?" I didn't know," Rykon stammered, his eyes darting between Lucy and the king. "She was veiled, I didn't recognize." "Ignorance," Lincoln interrupted, "is not a defense. It is an admission of incompetence." The blonde Omega who'd been clinging to Rykon's arm had long since fled. Smart girl. The rest of the hall remained paralyzed, caught between the instinct to watch and the instinct to hide. Lucy stepped forward, drawing every eye. She reached up slowly, deliberately, and removed her veil. The silver fabric slipped through her fingers and fell to the floor like a surrender flag. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Because the woman beneath the veil wasn't just beautiful, she was impossible. Lucy had been gone 3 years, but she hadn't just survived. She'd transformed. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, no longer tangled and unkempt, but glossy and crowned with a silver circlet embedded with moonstones. Her eyes, once dull with exhaustion and shame, now burned with intelligence and power. Her posture spoke of training, of confidence, of a woman who'd walked through fire and emerged forged in steel. But it was the mark on her collarbone that made them stumble back. The Alpha King's mating mark, intricate as lace, glowing faintly with lunar magic, sealed just above her heart. A mark that couldn't be faked, couldn't be given lightly, couldn't be removed except by death. Lucy, someone whispered from the crowd. Lucy Thormal? The name spread like wildfire. Lucy, the Omega who ran. The weak one. The broken girl who couldn't even shift properly. Except the woman standing before them wasn't weak. Wasn't broken. And as the moonlight streaming through the tall windows touched her skin, something else stirred in the air, something the pack hadn't felt from her before. Power. Raw. Untamed. Alpha-born. Rykon staggered back a step, his face twisting with disbelief. No, you're just an Omega. You couldn't even defend yourself when you abandoned me? Lucy's voice cut through his stammering like a blade through silk. She took a step toward him, and he flinched. When your pack decided I wasn't worth protecting. When the elders called me defective because I wouldn't speak about what happened to me. Her eyes swept the hall, landing on faces she recognized. Faces that had watched her suffer. Faces that had whispered behind her back. Faces that had smiled when she finally disappeared. Elder Margot stood near the fireplace, her wrinkled hands clutching her ceremonial staff. She'd been the loudest voice demanding Lucy's exile. A wolf who won't fight for herself has no place in this pack. Beta Cade leaned against a pillar, his arms crossed, his expression carefully neutral. He'd been Rykon's friend. Had stood silent while Rykon publicly rejected her, claiming she was too damaged to be a proper mate. And there, near the back, Omega Kayla, who'd started the rumors that Lucy had asked for the attack that had nearly destroyed her. Who'd convinced half the pack that Lucy's silence meant guilt. They all stared at her now. And Lucy smiled. You know what's wild, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. 3 years ago, I begged you to believe me. To protect me. To see me as something other than broken. She turned back to Rykon, her smile sharpening. And you, she pointed at him, you looked me in the eyes and said I wasn't strong enough to be your mate. Rykon's jaw clenched. Lucy, You said I was weak, she continued, her voice dropping to something dangerous. That I was a burden. That you couldn't risk your reputation on someone so pathetic. That's not. You're right, Lucy said. I was weak. I was broken. I was everything you said I was. She stepped closer, and Rykon stepped back. But you know what I learned, Rykon? Her eyes glittered. Weakness is temporary. But cruelty? Cruelty is a choice. And you chose wrong. Lincoln's hand settled on Lucy's shoulder, not to restrain her, but to steady her. To remind her she wasn't alone. His touch sent warmth flooding through the bond. A silent promise. I'm here. Whatever you need. Lucy glanced up at him, and for just a moment, the hall saw something that made their breath catch. Love. Not desperate. Not possessive. Not the toxic obsession that plagued so many mate bonds. But real. Built on respect. On trust. On the kind of partnership that only came when two people chose each other every single day. Lincoln's expression softened when he looked at her, just a fraction, just enough for those watching to see that the merciless Alpha King was capable of tenderness. Tell them, he murmured. Lucy turned back to the crowd, her chin high. 3 years ago, I fled this pack because I had no other choice. I was bleeding out physically and emotionally, and no one cared enough to stop it. Her voice didn't waver. I ran into the Northern Territories during the worst blizzard in a century. I should have died. She paused, letting the weight of that settle. But I didn't die. Because he found me. Every eye shifted to Lincoln. The Alpha King found me half frozen in the snow, and instead of leaving me there, instead of finishing what this pack started, he carried me to his den. He healed me. He listened to me. And when I was strong enough to stand again, she smiled. He asked me what I wanted. And what did you want? Elder Margot's voice cracked across the hall, sharp with suspicion. Lucy's smile turned cold. Vengeance. The word hung in the air like a blade. But not the reckless kind, she continued. Not the kind that would make me a rogue or an outcast. No, I wanted legal vengeance. The kind protected by pack law. The kind that couldn't be disputed or overturned. She gestured to the mark on her collarbone. So I married the Alpha King. Not because I was desperate. Not because I needed protection. Her eyes locked on Rykon. But because his power gave me the right to return. The right to stand in this hall. The right to demand accountability. Rykon's face had gone ashen. You married him just to claim what's mine, Lucy finished. Under pack law, a mated queen has the authority to challenge any wolf who wronged her before the bond was sealed. Any wolf who committed crimes against her. Any wolf who failed in their duty to protect. Her gaze swept the hall. And all of you failed. The accusation hung in the air like smoke, choking and inescapable. Elder Margot's staff struck the marble floor with a sharp crack. You dare come here and accuse us? You, who ran like a coward instead of facing judgment. Lucy's laugh was soft, bitter. Judgment? Is that what you call it when a traumatized Omega is dragged before the council and told her silence makes her guilty? You refuse to name your attacker. Margot's voice rose, her face flushing. Pack law requires testimony. You gave us nothing. I gave you bruises, Lucy said quietly. I gave you torn clothing. I gave you evidence. But because I couldn't speak the name out loud, because I was terrified, you decided I was lying. That's not how it happened, Beta Cade started. That's exactly how it happened. Lucy's voice cracked through the hall like a whip. And you know what the worst part was? The attacker was in that room. Sitting among you. Watching me break. And not one of you thought to question why I kept looking at. She stopped herself, jaw clenching. Lincoln's hand tightened on her shoulder. Through the bond, she felt his silent question. Do you want to name him now? Not yet, she answered. Let them squirm first. Rykon had been silent through this exchange, his face cycling through emotions, shock, anger, confusion, and now something that looked almost like fear. He stepped forward, his voice desperate. Lucy, I know I hurt you. I know I wasn't. I wasn't strong enough to stand by you. But this. He gestured to Lincoln, to her, to the mark binding them. This is insane. You married him out of spite. No, Lincoln said, speaking for the first time since Lucy had removed her veil. His voice was glacier cold. She married me because I asked her to. Because I wanted her. Because from the moment I met her, I knew she was worth more than every wolf in this hall combined. The statement hit like a physical blow. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in 5 territories, a male who'd rejected countless offers of alliance marriages, who was said to be incapable of attachment, had just declared Lucy's worth in front of everyone. You don't even know her, Rykon snarled, his composure cracking. She's broken. She's... Careful, Lincoln interrupted, his tone dropping to something sub-zero. You've already struck her once tonight. I'd advise against insulting her as well. Rykon's fists clenched. This is my pack. She was my Omega. You have no right to. She was never yours. Lincoln's words cut clean. A mate bond requires mutual acceptance. She rejected you the moment you abandoned her. Or did you forget that part of pack law? Silence. Because Lincoln was right. When Rykon had publicly severed their courtship, claiming Lucy was unfit, she'd had every right to reject the bond. She'd whispered the words through tears, and the pack had witnessed it. Rykon had no claim. He'd given it up. Then why are you here? It was Omega Kayla who spoke now, stepping forward from the crowd with her arms crossed. She'd always been bold, always pushing boundaries. If you wanted vengeance, Why not just challenge us through the king's authority? Why come to the Moonfall Banquet? Why wear a veil? Why, her eyes narrowed. Why let Rykon hit you? The question landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of understanding spread through the hall. Lucy's smile returned, slow and dangerous. Smart girl, she murmured. Maybe some of you aren't completely useless after all. She turned to face the crowd fully, her hand reaching back to take Lincoln's. He gave it willingly, his fingers threading through hers in a gesture of perfect unity. You want to know why I came back tonight? Lucy asked. Why I wore a veil. Why I let Rykon recognize me. Why I let him get close enough to strike. She glanced at Lincoln, and something passed between them, silent, intimate, absolute trust. Because this banquet was never about renewing alliances, Lucy said softly. It was a trap. The word detonated. Wolves surged to their feet, chairs scraping, voices rising in panic and confusion. Several alphas near the doors glanced toward the exits, but Lincoln's enforcers, massive males in black leather, had appeared silently in every doorway. No one was leaving. A trap. Elder Margot's voice shook. What are you talking about? Lincoln stepped forward, releasing Lucy's hand, but staying close enough that their bond hummed visibly in the air between them. When he spoke, every wolf in the hall felt the weight of his authority pressing down like gravity. 3 months ago, Lincoln said, I received a detailed account of what happened to Lucy in this pack. Not from her, she'd never asked me to interfere. But from others who'd witnessed her suffering and stayed silent. Beta Cade went pale. I learned that a traumatized Omega was blamed for her own assault. That she was exiled for refusing to name her attacker, an attacker who had threatened her life if she spoke. That your council prioritized reputation over justice. We followed pack law, Margot insisted. You followed convenience, Lincoln corrected. And in doing so, you violated the Alpha Covenant, the sacred law that binds all packs. The law that states no wolf shall be denied protection based on rank. The Alpha Covenant. It was ancient. Foundational. The one law that superseded pack politics. And this pack had broken it. But I am not an unreasonable king, Lincoln continued. I don't punish without proof. I don't condemn without cause. So I arranged this banquet. I brought Lucy back, veiled and marked, to see how you would react. His eyes fixed on Rykon. And I knew, from the psychological profile Lucy gave me, from the reports of your behavior, that you, Rykon Ashford, would not be able to resist asserting dominance over a woman who dared defy you. Rykon's face went from white to red. You wanted me to. I wanted you to reveal your character, Lincoln said. And you did. In front of 200 witnesses, you struck a queen. You assaulted the mate of an alpha king. You committed an act that, under pack law, is punishable by death or exile. I didn't know she was irrelevant. Lincoln's voice was final. The law doesn't care about your ignorance. It cares about your actions. Rykon's breathing had gone ragged. You set me up. This whole thing, you planned this. Yes, Lucy said simply. We did. She moved to stand beside Lincoln, equal in stance, united in purpose. And when she spoke, her voice carried the same authority as his. For 3 years, I rebuilt myself, she said. I trained. I studied pack law. I learned to fight not just with claws and teeth, but with strategy. And I realized something important. She looked directly at Rykon. Revenge isn't about making you suffer. It's about making you obsolete. The word hit him like a slap. You wanted me to disappear, Lucy continued. To fade away and stop reminding you of your failure. So I did. I disappeared so completely that when I returned, you didn't even recognize the woman I'd become. She stepped closer to him, and this time he couldn't back away. Lincoln's enforcers had moved in behind him, blocking any escape. But here's the twist, Rykon. Lucy's smile was razor-sharp. That slap you just gave me? It didn't just seal your fate. His eyes widened. What? It triggered something, Lucy whispered. Something that's been dormant in me since birth. And then, Lucy's eyes flashed gold. Not the amber brown of an Omega. Not the silver gray of a beta. Gold. Pure, molten, unmistakable. Alpha gold. The hall erupted. Wolves stumbled backward, some dropping to their knees instinctively. The scent rolling off Lucy shifted, sharpened, became something dominant and undeniable. No, Rykon breathed. That's impossible. You're an Omega. You've always been. I was suppressed, Lucy said, her voice layered now with alpha command. My bloodline was hidden, buried by my parents to protect me from pack politics. They didn't want me targeted. Didn't want me used as a pawn in alliance games. She turned to Elder Margot, whose face had gone ashen. But you knew, didn't you? Lucy asked softly. You were there when I was born. You saw the signs. And you helped my parents hide it. Margot's staff trembled in her hands. Your parents, they begged me. They said it would only bring you pain. And you were right, Lucy said. It did bring me pain. Because I couldn't access my alpha strength when I needed it most. I couldn't fight back. Couldn't protect myself. Couldn't even shift properly because my wolf was locked behind barriers I didn't know existed. Her eyes blazed brighter. But trauma has a funny way of breaking things open. And when Rykon struck me just now, when he dared to raise his hand against a queen, the last barrier shattered. The golden light in her eyes intensified, and suddenly the air around Lucy began to shimmer. Her wolf surged forward, pressing against her skin, demanding release. Lucy, Lincoln murmured, a warning and a question. She glanced at him, and the love in her eyes was matched by something fierce and untamed. I'm okay, she whispered. I'm in control. Then she turned back to the hall, to the pack that had broken her, and spoke with the full weight of alpha command. I am Lucy Thornwall Blackthorn. Omega no more. Hidden heir of the Thornwall Alpha line. Mate and queen to the Alpha King. And as of this moment, her voice rose, echoing off the vaulted ceiling, I am claiming my birthright. The Moonfall Banquet had become a reckoning. And the woman they'd tried to destroy was now the most powerful wolf in the room. The golden light in Lucy's eyes faded slowly, like embers cooling after a wildfire. But the power, that didn't fade. It saturated the air, thick and undeniable, making every wolf in the hall feel the weight of what she'd become. What she'd always been. Elder Margot collapsed into a chair, her weathered face crumbling. The Thornwall line, she whispered. I thought it had died out. It almost did, Lucy said, her voice returning to its normal register, but retaining an edge of command. My parents were the last. And when they died in the border skirmish 8 years ago, everyone assumed the bloodline ended with them. She touched the mark on her collarbone, drawing strength from the bond. But I survived. Hidden in plain sight as an Omega. Overlooked. Underestimated. Her gaze swept the crowd. Convenient, wasn't it? How easy it was to dismiss me when you thought I had no power. Rykon still stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. Behind him, Lincoln's enforcers remained statue still, their presence a silent threat. This changes nothing, Rykon said, but his voice cracked on the words. You still left. You still abandoned the pack. You can't just come back and what? Lucy interrupted. Demand justice? Hold you accountable? Watch you face the consequences of your actions. She tilted her head. Actually, Rykon, I can do exactly that. Because I'm not just queen by marriage anymore. I'm Alphaborn. Which means under the original pack laws, the ones that predate your petty territorial politics, I have the right to challenge the leadership of any pack that wronged me. The hall went silent. Beta Cade pushed through the crowd, his expression carefully neutral. Lucy, be reasonable. If you challenge the pack structure, you'll destabilize the entire territory. There are pups here. Families. Wolves who had nothing to do with what happened to you. I know, Lucy said softly. And for the first time since removing her veil, her expression gentled. I'm not a monster, Cade. I don't want to punish the innocent. Relief flickered across several faces. But I will punish the guilty, she continued. And there are more guilty wolves in this hall than just Rykon. The relief evaporated. Lucy turned to Lincoln, and the silent conversation that passed between them was electric. His hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing the red mark where Rykon had struck her. The touch was tender, possessive, devastating in its intimacy. "Are you sure?" Lincoln murmured, quiet enough that only she could hear. Through the bond, Lucy sent him certainty. Trust. Love. "I'm sure," she whispered back. Lincoln nodded once, then addressed the hall with the full weight of his authority. The Moonfall Banquet is traditionally a time of peace, of renewal. But it is also a time when grievances may be aired and justice sought. He gestured to Lucy. "My queen has invoked her right to a reckoning trial." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A reckoning trial was ancient law, rarely used, almost forgotten. It allowed an alpha who'd been wronged to call out specific wolves and demand they answer for their crimes in front of the gathered packs. The accused could defend themselves, present evidence, call witnesses. But if found guilty, the punishment was swift and absolute. "You can't be serious," Margot said, struggling to her feet. "A reckoning hasn't been called in over a century." "Then perhaps it's time to remember why the law exists," Lincoln said coldly. "Justice delayed is not justice denied. It's simply justice waiting for the right moment." He moved to stand beside his throne, and with a gesture, two of his enforcers brought forward a carved wooden chair, smaller than his throne but no less elegant. They placed it beside his, a queen seat that had been empty for decades. Lucy walked to it with her head high, her movements graceful despite the tremor in her hands that only Lincoln could feel through their bond. She sat, and the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The broken Omega had returned as royalty. "Let the reckoning begin," Lincoln declared. For hours earlier, Lucy stood in the private chambers Lincoln had secured for them at the banquet grounds, her hands shaking as she fastened the silver veil. "You don't have to do this," Lincoln said from where he leaned against the doorframe, watching her with those intense silver eyes that still made her breath catch. "We can leave right now. Return to the Northern Territories. Forget this pack ever existed." Lucy met his gaze in the mirror. "You know I can't do that." "I know you think you can't." He pushed off the door frame and crossed to her, his presence immediately grounding her. "But Lucy, if this goes wrong, if they hurt you again." "They won't." She turned to face him, taking his hands in hers. "Because I have something I didn't have 3 years ago." "What's that?" "You," she said simply. "And myself. The real me. Not the broken girl they remember." Lincoln's jaw tightened. "I still don't like using you as bait." "It's not bait if it's a trap," Lucy countered. "And we both know Rykon can't resist exerting dominance over someone he perceives as weak." The psychological profile was clear. Profiles can be wrong. But this one isn't. Lucy stepped closer, rising on her toes to press her forehead against his. "Trust me, Lincoln. I need to face them. I need them to see what they created when they tried to destroy me." He closed his eyes, breathing her in moonflowers and steel, softness and strength. "I trust you with my life," he murmured. "It's them I don't trust with yours." "Then don't let them have it," she whispered. "Stay close. Feel everything through the bond. And when the moment comes, I'll be there," he promised. Their lips met in a kiss that was both gentle and fierce, a warrior's kiss, a lover's promise. When they pulled apart, Lucy's eyes were clear, determined. "Let's go remind them what it costs to break a wolf who refuses to stay broken." Present. Lucy stood from her throne, and the hall fell silent once more. "I call forward Rykon Ashford," she declared, her voice ringing clear. "For the crime of assault against a queen. For the crime of abandonment of a mate bond. For the crime of willful cruelty." Rykon's face had gone gray. "Lucy, please." "Step forward," Lincoln commanded, and the alpha order in his voice left no room for refusal. Rykon moved jerkily, his enforcers releasing him. He stopped 10 feet from the twin thrones, his hands clenched at his sides. "Do you deny striking me tonight?" Lucy asked. "No, but..." Do you deny publicly rejecting our mate bond 3 years ago? I had reasons. Do you deny standing by while I begged for help, for protection, for someone to believe me? Raikon's mouth opened, closed. His eyes darted around the hall, looking for support, for allies. He found none. Even his closest friends had gone silent, unwilling to associate themselves with his actions now that Lucy wore a crown. I was trying to protect the pack, he finally said. You were unstable, traumatized. I didn't know how to help you. So you chose to hurt me instead, Lucy said quietly. Because it was easier than admitting you were scared. The accusation hit home. Raikon flinched. I was scared, he admitted, his voice breaking. I didn't know what to do. You wouldn't talk. You wouldn't eat. You just stared at nothing. And then you started looking at me like, he stopped himself. Lucy went very still. Like what, Raikon? Like you were afraid of me, he whispered. The hall erupted in whispers. Lucy's hands gripped the arms of her throne so hard her knuckles went white. Through the bond, Lincoln felt her pain, sharp and fresh as the day it happened. I was afraid of you, Lucy said, her voice shaking now. Because you reminded me of him. Him. Raikon's confusion was genuine. Who? Lucy stood, and the golden light flickered in her eyes again. Your father, she said. The words detonated like a bomb. Raikon staggered backward. What? No, that's, my father would never. Your father, Garrett Ashford, former beta of this pack, assaulted me in the storage cellars the night of the Harvest Festival 3 years ago, Lucy said, each word precise and cutting. He cornered me. He told me that if I screamed, he'd kill me and claim I'd attacked him first. He said no one would believe in Omega over a decorated beta. Tears streamed down her face now, but her voice never wavered. And he was right, she continued. Because when I went to the council, bruised and bleeding and terrified, and I couldn't say his name out loud because he'd threatened my life, you all assumed I was lying. Raikon's legs gave out. He felt his knees, his face a mask of horror. No, my father, he was honorable. He was a predator, Lucy said. And you knew. Maybe not consciously. Maybe not fully. But you knew something was wrong. That's why you pulled away from me. That's why you couldn't look at me. Because somewhere deep down, you recognized the signs. I didn't know. Raikon's voice broke on a sob. I swear, Lucy, I didn't know. But you suspected, Lincoln said, speaking for the first time in minutes. His voice was glacier cold. And instead of investigating, instead of protecting your mate, you chose the easier path. You rejected her. You let the pack exile her. You preserved your family's reputation at the cost of her life. Where is Garrett Ashford now? Lucy asked. Silence. Beta Cade finally spoke, his voice heavy. He died 2 years ago. Border Patrol incident. Lucy closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had shifted, grief mixed with rage mixed with terrible, aching relief. Then I can't punish him, she said quietly. But I can punish the wolves who enabled him. Who chose convenience over truth? Who let me suffer because acknowledging my pain would have been inconvenient? Her gaze swept the hall, landing on specific faces. Elder Margot, you who knew my bloodline and stayed silent when I needed someone to speak for me. Beta Cade, you who called me too emotional when I begged for help. Omega Kayla, you who spread rumors that I'd asked for it, that I'd wanted the attention. Each name landed like a sentence. And Raikon, Lucy's voice broke on his name. You who I loved. You who I trusted. You who abandoned me when I needed you most. She descended from her throne and walked to where he knelt, broken and sobbing. I don't want revenge anymore, she whispered. I just want you to understand what you took from me. Raikon looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. Lucy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know, she said. And she meant it. But sorry wasn't enough. Lincoln appeared at her side, his hand finding hers. What's your judgment, my queen? Lucy looked at her husband, the male who'd found her broken and never once asked her to be anything other than herself. Who'd loved her before knowing she was powerful? Who'd planned this entire reckoning not for his own glory, but because he couldn't stand the thought of her pain going unanswered? "I'll tell you my judgment," she said. "But first, I need to know something." She looked down at Raikon. "Did you love me? Ever? Even a little?" Raikon's face crumpled. "Yes," he whispered. "But I was too much of a coward to fight for you." Lucy nodded slowly. "Then your punishment," she said, "is to live with that." The weight of Lucy's words settled over the hall like fresh snow, cold, heavy, suffocating. Raikon remained on his knees, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Around him, the pack watched in stunned silence, caught between relief that Lucy hadn't called for blood and horror at understanding the depth of what had been done to her. But Lucy wasn't finished. She turned from Raikon to address the entire hall, her voice carrying to every corner. "Living with guilt is a slower death than execution. It eats at you. Reminds you every day of who you could have been if you'd been braver, stronger, better." Her eyes found Elder Margot, who'd aged a decade in the past hour. "You'll carry the knowledge that you could have prevented my suffering. That one word from you, one acknowledgement of my bloodline, might have changed everything." Margot's staff clattered to the floor. "Lucy, child, I was trying to protect you." "No," Lucy interrupted gently. "You were protecting yourself. My parents asked for your silence because they feared pack politics. But when I needed the truth, when my life depended on someone vouching for my worth, you chose their memory over my survival." The old woman's face crumpled. I thought you'd left. That you were safe somewhere." "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Lucy said. "None of you did. You just assumed the broken Omega wasn't worth the effort of finding out." She moved through the crowd now, Lincoln shadowing her protectively, his presence a constant reminder that she was no longer alone. "Beta Cade." Lucy stopped in front of the tall male who'd once been Raikon's right hand. "You called me hysterical when I reported the assault. You said I was too emotional to be coherent. Do you remember?" Cade's jaw worked. Yes, I remember. Do you know why I was too emotional?" Lucy asked softly. "Because I'd just been attacked. Because I was terrified. Because asking for help took every ounce of courage I had left, and you dismissed me like I was a child throwing a tantrum." "I was wrong," Cade said, and to his credit, he met her eyes. "I was taught that Omegas exaggerate, that they use emotion to manipulate. I believed it because it was easier than questioning what I'd been raised to accept. And now I know better," he said quietly. "But that doesn't undo the harm." "No," Lucy agreed. "It doesn't." She continued through the hall, stopping before Omega Kayla, the woman who'd been so quick to spread poison disguised as concern. Kayla's defiance had crumbled. She stood with her arms wrapped around herself, her face pale. "I didn't know it was Garrett," she whispered before Lucy could speak. I thought you were protecting someone you cared about. I thought if I made you angry enough, scared enough, you'd finally name them." Lucy stared at her. "So you told everyone I'd asked for it? That I'd led him on?" "I was trying to help." Kayla's voice broke. "I thought if the pack turned against you, you'd have no choice but to defend yourself. To fight back. By destroying what little reputation I had left?" Lucy shook her head slowly. "That's not help, Kayla. That's cruelty dressed up as strategy." "I know," Kayla whispered. "I know that now." Lucy looked at all of them, the wolves who'd failed her, who'd broken her, who'd sent her running into a blizzard with nothing but despair for company. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, returning to stand beside Lincoln. "I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to exile you. I'm not even going to strip your ranks." Confusion rippled through the crowd. But Lucy continued, her voice hardening, "This pack is going to change. Because what happened to me can't ever happen again. Not to any wolf, regardless of rank." She looked to Lincoln, who nodded and stepped forward. "As Alpha King, I'm invoking the Reformation Decree," Lincoln declared. "This pack will undergo a complete structural review. New council members will be appointed. Every wolf will receive training on trauma response and pack law. And most importantly, his silver eyes swept the hall with predatory precision. Any future accusations of assault or abuse will be investigated by an external authority, not by the pack's internal council. The implications crashed over them. Their autonomy was being stripped. Their ability to police themselves removed. You can't do that, Margot protested weakly. Pack sovereignty was forfeited the moment you violated the Alpha Covenant, Lincoln said. You failed to protect one of your own. Under ancient law, that gives me the right to intervene. This is because of her, someone muttered from the crowd, a voice Lucy didn't recognize. We're being punished because she couldn't let it go. The temperature in the hall dropped 20 degrees. Lincoln moved so fast he seemed to blur. One moment he was beside Lucy. The next, he had the speaker, a young beta male, pinned against the wall by his throat, lifted 3 feet off the ground. Say that again, Lincoln growled, his voice barely human. Give me a reason. The beta's eyes bulged, his hands scrabbling uselessly at Lincoln's iron grip. Lincoln, Lucy said softly. He didn't release the male, but his eyes flicked to her. He's not worth it, she said. Let him go. For a long moment, Lincoln didn't move. Then, with deliberate slowness, he lowered the beta and released him. The male collapsed, gasping. The next wolf who questions my queen's right to justice, Lincoln said, his voice carrying to every corner, will answer to me. And I promise you, I am far less merciful than she is. He returned to Lucy's side, and she took his hand, their fingers intertwining. The bond between them pulsed with shared emotion, his protective fury, her grateful love. There's one more thing, Lucy said, and her voice had changed. Become heavier. Something I haven't told anyone. Not even Lincoln. Lincoln's head snapped toward her, surprise flickering in his eyes. Through the bond, she sent him reassurance and apology in equal measure. I'm sorry. I couldn't find the words until now. Lucy, what? She took a breath and faced the hall. Garrett Ashford's death 2 years ago, she said. It wasn't a border patrol incident. The hall went deathly silent. Beta Cade stepped forward, his expression sharp. What are you talking about? I was there. We found his body on the northern border. Rogue attack. No, Lucy said quietly. You found his body where I left it. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Raikon surged to his feet, his face a mask of shock and rage. You killed him. I defended myself, Lucy corrected. 2 years ago, after I'd been with Lincoln for a year, I received word that Garrett was bragging in taverns about what he'd done to me. Laughing about it. Saying I'd deserved it for being uppity. Her hands trembled, but her voice stayed steady. I went to confront him. Not to kill him, just to face him. To let him see that I'd survived. That he hadn't broken me. She paused. But when he saw me, he tried to finish what he'd started. Said he should have killed me the first time. That he'd make sure I didn't survive the second. Lincoln's hand tightened on hers, his fury blazing through the bond. So I fought back, Lucy continued. And this time I wasn't weak. I wasn't broken. I wasn't alone in my own head. Her eyes burned gold. My alpha blood was beginning to wake up. And when he lunged at me, when he tried to. She stopped, swallowed hard. I killed him, she finished. I tore his throat out. And then I dragged his body to the border and left it where it would be found. Where it would look like rogues had done it. The revelation shattered the last illusions in the hall. Raikon looked like he might be sick. You murdered my father? I executed a predator, Lucy said. There's a difference. That's not justice. That's revenge. No, Raikon, Lincoln said, his voice cold and final. That's survival. Your father tried to kill her a second time. She had every right to defend herself. Did you know? Raikon turned his fury on Lincoln. Did you know she killed him? No, Lincoln said, and Lucy felt his surprise and his pride through the bond. But I know it now. And I'd have done the same thing in her position. He looked at Lucy with something fierce and tender in his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed, Lucy whispered. Not of defending myself, but of enjoying it. When he died, when I felt his life end beneath my hands, I felt glad. Triumphant. And that scared me. Lucy, I thought you'd see me differently, she continued. You'd saved me, healed me, loved me. And I repaid that by becoming exactly what this pack accused me of being, a killer. Lincoln pulled her close, his forehead pressing to hers. You're not a killer, he murmured. You're a survivor. And if feeling glad that your attacker can never hurt you again makes you a monster, then we're all monsters. Through the bond, Lucy felt the truth of his words. Felt his absolute acceptance of every part of her, even the dark, violent parts she'd tried to hide. There's more, she whispered, so quietly only he could hear. His eyes searched hers. Tell me. She pulled back slightly and addressed the hall again, though her words were for Lincoln. When I killed Garrett, something inside me woke up. The alpha blood that had been dormant my whole life, it didn't just stir. It erupted. Her voice shook. And in that moment, I felt a bond snap into place. Not the mate bond one share with Lincoln, we were already bonded by then. But something older. Deeper. She looked at Lincoln, and tears spilled down her cheeks. Lincoln, I need to tell you why I really agreed to marry you. His expression went very still. What? You found me in the snow and saved my life. You healed me and asked for nothing in return. And after 6 months, you asked me to be your mate. She swallowed hard. You told me you felt the bond the moment you saw me. That you knew I was meant to be yours. Yes, he said carefully. I meant every word. I know, she whispered. But Lincoln, I didn't feel the bond then. Not at first. The admission hit him like a physical blow. She felt his shock, his hurt, through their connection. I cared for you, she said quickly. I was grateful. I admired you. But the mate bond, that soul-deep knowing, I didn't feel it until the night I killed Garrett. Understanding dawned in Lincoln's eyes, followed by something she couldn't name. You think you chose me for the wrong reasons, he said slowly. I think I agreed to marry you because you offered me power and protection, Lucy said, her voice breaking. And I've spent 2 years terrified that you'd realize the bond was one-sided. That you'd feel my hesitation through our connection and know I didn't love you the way you loved me. Lucy, but I do love you, she said fiercely. The bond woke up that night, and everything I'd been feeling, the gratitude, the admiration, the growing affection, it all crystallized into something real. Something true. And every day since, I've loved you more. But I was afraid to tell you the truth because... Lincoln kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was raw and desperate and claiming, a kiss that said more than words ever could. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lincoln cupped her face in his hands. I knew, he said. Lucy froze. What? I knew the bond was one-sided at first, he said gently. I felt your hesitation, your uncertainty. But I also felt your determination to try, to give us a chance. And I knew, his voice roughened, that sometimes love has to be chosen before it can be felt. Tears streamed down Lucy's face. You knew? This whole time. This whole time, he confirmed. And I loved you anyway. Because you were brave enough to choose me even when your heart wasn't sure. Because you trusted me with your broken pieces. Because you saw me, not the Alpha King, not the monster everyone fears, but me. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. And when the bond finally completed on your end, he murmured, when I felt your love slam into me with the force of a tidal wave, Lucy, that was the best moment of my life. Even better than this, she asked, gesturing to the hall, the reckoning, the justice they'd fought for. Especially better than this, he said. Because this? He looked at the assembled wolves. This is just setting the world right. But your love? That's what made me believe the world was worth saving in the first place. The bond between them blazed so bright that several wolves gasped, actually seeing the golden-silver light that connected them. Lucy buried her face in Lincoln's chest, and for a moment, just a moment, she let herself be held. Let herself be safe. Then she straightened, wiped her eyes, and turned back to the pack. So now you know everything, she said. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not the broken Omega you remember. I'm Alpha-born, queen-crowned, and I killed my attacker. She let that sink in. And I'm giving you a choice, she continued. You can accept the Reformation decree. Let Lincoln's authority reshape this pack into something better. Or, her eyes flashed gold, you can reject it. Fight it. And I will invoke my right as Alpha-born to challenge for leadership of this pack myself. Shock rippled through the hall. If I win, Lucy said, this pack becomes mine. And I promise you, I will tear down every structure, every tradition, every comfortable lie that allowed predators to thrive and victims to suffer. She stepped forward, and the power radiating from her made several wolves drop to their knees. So, what will it be? She asked. Reformation under the Alpha King's mercy? Or revolution under mine? The silence that followed was absolute. And then, Elder Margot rose from her chair. Slowly. Painfully. And she did something Lucy had never seen in all her years in this pack. She knelt. I accept the Reformation, Margot said, her voice breaking. And I beg on behalf of those of us who failed you, I beg for the chance to do better. One by one, other wolves began to kneel. Beta Cade. Omega Kayla. The young Beta who'd questioned Lucy's right. Even Rykon, still broken and sobbing, lowered himself to the ground. Within minutes, the entire hall was kneeling before Lucy and Lincoln. All except one figure in the shadows. A figure Lucy hadn't noticed until now. A male with dark hair and darker eyes, watching her with an expression that made her blood run cold. Because she recognized him. She'd seen him the night of her attack, standing in the doorway of the storage cellar. Watching. And now he was here. Still watching. Still smiling. Lucy's hand shot out, gripping Lincoln's arm. Lincoln, she whispered urgently. The male in the back. Gray cloak. Do you see him? Lincoln's eyes narrowed, scanning the crowd. Where? But when Lucy looked again, the figure was gone. The kneeling wolves remained frozen, heads bowed, waiting for their queen's acknowledgement. But Lucy couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Her eyes locked on the space where the figure had been, her heart hammering against her ribs. Lucy? Lincoln's voice was sharp with concern. Through the bond, he felt her sudden spike of terror, primal and visceral. What did you see? He was there, she whispered. The night Garrett attacked me. There was someone else in the cellar. I saw him in the doorway, watching. I thought I'd imagined him. That the trauma had made me see things. Lincoln's entire body went rigid. Describe him. Tall. Dark hair. Gray cloak. And his eyes, Lucy's voice cracked. His eyes were wrong. Like he was enjoying what he saw. Lincoln's hand moved to the blade at his hip, a weapon he always carried, even to sacred gatherings. How long did he watch? I don't know. I was trying to fight Garrett off, and when I looked again, he was gone. She gripped Lincoln's arm tighter. Lincoln, if there was a witness, if someone saw what happened and said nothing, then they're complicit, Lincoln finished, his voice deadly quiet. And they've been hiding in this pack for 3 years. He turned to address the hall, his alpha command rolling out like a shockwave. Everyone on your feet. Now. The wolves scrambled upright, confusion and fear written across their faces. A male, Lincoln said, his voice cutting through the space like a blade. Gray cloak. Dark hair. Dark eyes. He was standing at the back of the hall 30 seconds ago. Who is he? Silence. Uncomfortable glances exchanged. I asked a question, Lincoln said, and this time the temperature in the room dropped so low that frost began forming on the windows. Who is he? Your Majesty, Beta Cade spoke up hesitantly. There are dozens of wolves here tonight. Many we don't know personally. Visiting pack members, diplomats. Then you're going to introduce me to every single one, Lincoln said. Starting now. No one leaves this hall until I've accounted for every wolf present. He turned to his enforcers. Seal the doors. Anyone who tries to run gets detained. The enforcers moved with military precision, positioning themselves at every exit. The wolves in the hall shifted nervously, trapped and suddenly aware of how vulnerable they were. Lucy forced herself to focus, to push past the panic clawing at her chest. She scanned the crowd methodically, looking for anything familiar, a gait, a posture, the set of shoulders she'd seen that night. Nothing. Lucy, Lincoln murmured, pulling her close. I need you to stay here. Let me handle this. No, her voice was firm despite the tremor in her hands. If he's here, I'm the only one who can identify him. That's exactly why you should stay. Lincoln. She met his eyes, and in hers he saw not fear, but determination. I didn't survive what happened to me just to hide now. If there's a wolf in this hall who watched me get attacked and did nothing, then he needs to see that I'm not afraid anymore. Through the bond, Lincoln felt her resolve fragile but unyielding, like steel wrapped in silk. Fine, he said quietly. But you don't leave my side. Wouldn't dream of it. Together, they descended from the thrones and began moving through the crowd. Lincoln's enforcers created a perimeter around them while Beta Cade nervously introduced each cluster of wolves, pack members, visiting alphas, diplomatic envoys. None of them matched. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Lucy's certainty began to waver. Had she imagined it? Had the stress of the reckoning, the revelation about Garrett's death, the weight of everything, had it made her see ghosts? Your Majesty, one of the enforcers called from near the kitchen entrance. We found something. Lincoln and Lucy hurried over. The enforcer held up a gray cloak, still warm, discarded behind a stack of wine barrels. He was here, the enforcer said grimly. And he left in a hurry. Lincoln's jaw clenched. Seal the entire compound. No one gets in or out. I want every room searched. Lincoln. Lucy's voice was barely a whisper. She was staring at the cloak, at something embroidered on the inner lining. A symbol she recognized. A raven with 3 eyes. The mark of the Shadowborn clan. Lincoln went very still. No, that's impossible. What? Lucy looked between him and the cloak. What is that symbol? The Shadowborn were wiped out, Lincoln said, but his voice had lost its certainty. 20 years ago. My father led the campaign himself. They were rogues, dangerous, unstable. They practiced blood magic, and he stopped abruptly. And what? Lucy pressed. Lincoln's eyes met hers, and she saw something she'd never seen before in the Alpha King's gaze. Fear. They collected trauma, he said quietly. They fed on suffering, on fear, on the psychological pain of others. They'd target vulnerable wolves, victims of violence, abuse, grief, and they'd watch. Study them. Document their breaking. Lucy's blood turned to ice. Why? No one knows. The records were destroyed when we eliminated them. But the theory was Lincoln's voice dropped even lower. They were trying to weaponize trauma. To create wolves so broken, so desperate, that they could be controlled. Turned into living weapons. But you said they were wiped out. They were supposed to be, Lincoln said. My father made sure of it. Every Shadowborn male, female, and child. Hunted down and executed. Every child. Lucy's voice held a note of horror. My father believed it was the only way to ensure they couldn't resurrect their practices. Lincoln's expression was grim. It's one of the few things about his reign I've never agreed with. But I was too young to stop it. I was only 16 when it happened. He turned the cloak over in his hands, studying the symbol with an intensity that spoke of old pain. If the Shadowborn are back, he said slowly, if even one of them survived and has been hiding all these years. Then my attack wasn't random, Lucy finished, her voice hollow. I was chosen. The implications crashed over them both. Lincoln, Lucy said, her voice shaking now. That night in the cellar, before Garrett attacked me, I remember smelling something strange. Like smoke and copper and something I couldn't name. I thought it was just the old storage barrels, but... Blood magic, Lincoln said. It has a distinct scent. If a Shadowborn was there, if he was using magic to amplify Garrett's aggression, to push him to attack. Then Garrett might not have been fully in control, Lucy whispered. He might have been influenced. Manipulated into. No, Lincoln's voice was hard. Don't do that. Don't give him an excuse. Blood magic can amplify existing urges, but it can't create them from nothing. Whatever the Shadowborn did, Garrett wanted to hurt you. The magic just gave him permission. Lucy nodded, but her mind was racing. Why me though? Why target me specifically? Because you're Alphaborn, Lincoln said. Even suppressed, even hidden, your bloodline would have called to them. And if they wanted to study trauma in a powerful wolf, to see if they could break someone with alpha blood. He stopped, his face going pale. What? Lucy demanded. Lucy, Lincoln said carefully, when did your parents die? 8 years ago. Border skirmish. Why? What if it wasn't a skirmish? Lincoln's eyes were dark. What if the Shadowborn targeted them because they had an Alphaborn daughter? If they eliminated your parents, you'd be vulnerable. Unprotected. And when your bloodline eventually manifested, they'd have the perfect subject, Lucy finished, her voice hollow. The pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. Her parents' sudden death. Her bloodline being suppressed right when she became an adult. The attack happening at the one moment she'd been truly alone. The Pack's convenient willingness to exile her instead of investigating. It had all been orchestrated. The Shadowborn didn't just watch me get attacked, Lucy said, her voice rising. They arranged it. They killed my parents. They waited for me to be vulnerable. They manipulated Garrett. And then they watched to see what would happen. And when you survived, Lincoln added grimly, when you ran instead of breaking completely, they followed you. They've been watching you this whole time. Which means, Lucy said, her heart sinking, they know about us. About our bond. About tonight. Lincoln's expression went from grim to deadly. They knew I'd feel the slap through the bond. They knew I'd react. They knew exactly how tonight would play out because they've been studying me too. Through the bond, Lucy felt his realization crystallizing into horror. Lincoln, she said slowly, when did your father lead the campaign against the Shadowborn? 20 years ago. Why? And when did your mother die? Lincoln's entire body went rigid. 21 years ago. His voice caught. She died in childbirth. With my younger brother. They both died. Or that's what you were told, Lucy said gently. No, Lincoln shook his head violently. I saw her body. I was there. Did you see your brother's body? Silence. Lincoln, Lucy pressed. What if your brother didn't die? What if he was taken? What if the Shadowborn have been raising him all this time, and I killed their entire clan in revenge for something they didn't do, Lincoln finished, his voice breaking. I've been hunting Shadowborn survivors for 20 years. If my brother is one of them, if he's been alive this whole time, and I've been trying to kill him. A sound echoed through the hall. Slow, mocking applause. Every head turned. At the main entrance, somehow behind the enforcers, as if he'd materialized from shadow, stood the figure Lucy had seen. Dark hair. Dark eyes. Gray cloak pulled around his feet. And a smile that made her skin crawl. Bravo, the figure said, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. You've figured it out faster than I expected. Though I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. You always were clever, brother. Lincoln's face drained of color. Luca? The figure Luca tilted his head. Oh good. You remember my name. I wasn't sure you would. After all, you've spent 20 years telling yourself I was dead. He stepped forward, and the enforcers moved to intercept him. But with a casual gesture, Luca sent them flying backward, not with physical force, but with something darker. Blood magic crackled in the air, red and writhing. Luca chided. Let's keep this civil. I'm not here to fight. Not yet anyway. Lincoln stepped in front of Lucy protectively. What do you want? What do I want? Luca laughed, and the sound was wrong, too high, too sharp, like breaking glass. What does any abandoned child want, Lincoln? Recognition. Acknowledgement. Maybe an apology for the fact that you murdered everyone who raised me. The Shadowborn were monsters, Lincoln said, but his voice wavered. They tortured wolves, destroyed minds. They gave me a family, Lucas snarled, his composure cracking. When our father declared me dead, when he threw my body into the shadows rather than bury me properly, the Shadowborn found me. They saved me, raised me, taught me. Taught you to prey on the vulnerable, Lincoln shot back. To feed on suffering. I prefer to think of it as understanding suffering, Lucas said, his smile returning. And Lucy here, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to run. She's been my greatest study. Lucy felt sick. You've been watching me for 3 years? Longer, Lucas said casually. I've been watching you since you were 15. Since your bloodline first started manifesting. You were so fascinating, all that power locked away, struggling to break free. And your parents were so determined to keep you hidden. You killed them, Lucy whispered. I freed you, Luca corrected. They were suffocating your potential, keeping you weak. I simply removed the obstacles. You're insane, Lucy said. I'm enlightened, Luca countered. And soon, you'll understand. Both of you will. He raised his hand, and the blood magic intensified. Lucy felt it pressing against her mind, invasive, seeking, trying to slip through her mental defenses. You see, Luca continued, I didn't come here tonight to stop your little reckoning. I came to offer you both a choice. We don't want anything from you, Lincoln growled. Oh, but you do. Luca's smile widened. Because I know something you don't. About the night our mother died. About what our father did to ensure his reign remained unchallenged. Lincoln's hands clenched into fists. What are you talking about? Our mother didn't die in childbirth, brother. She was murdered. Poisoned slowly over months to make it look natural. And do you know who gave the order? You're lying. Am I? Luca tilted his head. Ask yourself, Lincoln, why was our father so quick to declare me dead? Why did he burn my body before anyone could verify it was actually mine? Why did he launch a genocide against the Shadowborn within weeks of my supposed death? Because you were taken by monsters. Because I was a witness, Luca interrupted. I was 3 days old, and I saw what he did. My infant wolf sensed the poison in her blood, recognized the killer. And when the Shadowborn rescued me, they knew our father would hunt them to extinction to keep his secret safe. Lincoln looked like he'd been struck. No, father wouldn't. Wouldn't he? Luca's expression turned pitying. You idealized him. Built your entire reign around being better than the other alphas. But you're his son, Lincoln. His heir. And his crimes are now your burden. Through the bond, Lucy felt Lincoln's world cracking apart. 20 years of certainty, of purpose, crumbling under the weight of possibility. Even if that's true, Lucy said, stepping forward despite Lincoln's protective stance, it doesn't justify what you've done. The wolves you've hurt. The lives you've destroyed. I've hurt no one who didn't deserve it, Luca said. Every wolf I've studied chose their own suffering. I simply observed. You manipulated Garrett into attacking me. I encouraged his existing desires, Luca corrected. There's a difference. And look how beautifully you've grown from that experience. You're powerful now. Self-aware. Magnificent. His praise felt like slime on her skin. You're sick, Lucy said. I'm honest, Luca countered. I don't pretend suffering is noble or beautiful. I acknowledge it for what it is, a transformative force. And you, Lucy, have been transformed. Aren't you grateful? Get out, Lincoln said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Get out before I kill you. You can't kill me, Luca said. I'm your brother. Your blood. And I'm offering you both something precious, the truth about your past. About the lies you've built your lives on. We don't need your truth, Lincoln said. No? Luca's smile turned cruel. Then how about this? I know why Lucy's bloodline was suppressed. I know who helped her parents hide it. And I know that the same wolf who helped them, he paused for effect, is the one who ultimately betrayed them to me. Lucy's blood ran cold. What? Someone in this pack, Luca said, gesturing to the assembled wolves who'd been watching this exchange with mounting horror, knew exactly what you were. And they sold that information to me in exchange for protection. You're lying, Lucy said, but her voice shook. Am I? Luca's eyes gleamed. Then ask yourself, how did I know exactly when to strike? How did I know your parents would be at that specific border crossing? How did I know Garrett would be alone with you that night? He took a step closer, and this time Lincoln's enforcers didn't try to stop him. They were frozen, caught in the web of blood magic Luca had woven around the entire hall. Someone in this room, Luca said softly, has been working with me for 8 years. Feeding me information. Watching you for me. And they're still here. Still watching. Still loyal. His eyes swept the crowd. So here's my offer, dear brother. Dear sister-in-law. His tone was mockingly formal. Find the traitor in your midst. Root out the wolf who sold Lucy's family for 30 pieces of silver. And when you do, his smile turned vicious. Come find me. Because then, and only then, will I tell you the whole truth about what our father did. About what I'm planning. About why everything that's happened was just the beginning. Blood magic flared. And Luca vanished. Not through the door. Not through a window. He simply dissolved into shadow, leaving behind only the echo of his laughter and the gray cloak pooled on the floor. The spell holding the enforcer shattered. Wolves gasped, stumbled, several fell to their knees. But Lucy and Lincoln remained standing, locked together, the bond between them the only thing keeping them both upright. Because everything they'd fought for tonight, the justice, the reckoning, the reformation, had just been revealed as a piece in a much larger, much darker game. And somewhere in this hall, hidden among wolves they'd known their entire lives, was a traitor who'd helped orchestrate Lucy's destruction. Who might still be working with the monster who'd just walked away. Who was still watching. The silence in the hall was suffocating. 200 wolves stood frozen, each one suddenly aware that they were being watched by their queen and king with suspicion. Each one wondering if the wolf beside them had sold Lucy's family to a monster. Each one terrified they might be next. Lincoln's hand remained locked with Lucy's, their bond pulsing with shared turmoil, his rage and grief colliding with her fear and determination. Through their connection, words passed faster than speech. 8 years, Lucy thought. Someone has been betraying me for 8 years. We'll find them, Lincoln promised. I'll tear this pack apart stone by stone if I have to. No. Lucy's mental voice was firm despite her shaking hands. That's what Luca wants. He wants us fractured. Paranoid. Turning on each other. Then what do you suggest? Lucy pulled her hand free and stepped forward, addressing the hall with a steadiness she didn't feel. Everyone here is now under suspicion, she said clearly. Until we identify the traitor, no one leaves the compound. No one travels alone. No one sends messages outside these walls. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, fear, protest, indignation. Your Majesty, Beta Cade spoke up, his voice strained. That's a significant restriction. Some of these wolves have families in other territories. Businesses. Responsibilities. And I have a traitor to catch, Lucy interrupted. A traitor who helped murder my parents. Who orchestrated my attack. Who has been feeding information to a blood mage for nearly a decade. Her eyes swept the crowd. So forgive me if I'm not concerned about your inconvenience. Elder Margot struggled to her feet, leaning heavily on her staff. Child, I understand your anger. But accusing the entire pack. I'm not accusing anyone, Lucy said. I'm protecting everyone. Because if there's a traitor here, they're not just my enemy. They're yours too. Luca doesn't care about pack loyalty or alliances. He cares about suffering. And whoever helped him has brought that suffering to your doorstep. She turned to Lincoln. We need to question everyone. Starting with the wolves who had the most access to information about my family. That would be the council, Lincoln said, his gaze moving to Margot, then to the other elders scattered through the crowd. And any wolf who held a position of trust in the pack 8 years ago. I was on the council, Margot said immediately. I helped your parents hide your bloodline, Lucy. But I swear on the moon itself, I never betrayed you. I never spoke to anyone about Then you won't mind answering questions under a truth bond, Lincoln said. The hall went deathly quiet. Truth bonds were ancient magic, binding oaths that made lying physically impossible. They were rarely used because they required both parties to be vulnerable, to open themselves to potential manipulation. But they were absolute. If Margot agreed, her innocence or guilt would be undeniable. Margot's wrinkled hands trembled on her staff. Yes, I'll submit to a truth bond. As will I, Beta Cade said, stepping forward. I wasn't on the council 8 years ago, but I was Rykon's second. If there's any suspicion. And me, Omega Kayla added quietly. I know I've done wrong. But I never worked with anyone outside the pack. I'll prove it. One by one, wolves volunteered. Some out of genuine innocence. Some out of fear of appearing guilty by refusing. But Lucy watched them all carefully, looking for hesitation. For tells. For the slight flicker of panic that would give away the traitor. She saw nothing conclusive. Luca's training them, she realized. Or the traitor is that good at hiding. Lincoln moved close, his voice pitched for her ears only. We can't question 200 wolves tonight. It'll take days. Maybe weeks. And every moment we're focused inward, Luca is out there planning his next move. So, what do you suggest? Lucy asked. We split our focus, Lincoln said. I'll handle the interrogations. He hesitated, and she felt his reluctance through the bond. You go after Luca. Lucy's head snapped toward him. Absolutely not. Lucy, you're not sending me away, she said firmly. Not now. Not after everything. I'm not sending you away, Lincoln countered. I'm asking you to do what you do best, hunt. You found Garrett when no one else could. You survived in the Northern Territories alone. You're a tracker, Lucy. And Luca left a trail. He gestured to the gray cloak, still pooled on the floor. Blood magic leaves residue, he continued. Scent markers. Energy signatures. My enforcers are soldiers, not hunters. But you, his eyes held hers with absolute conviction, you can follow him. And do what when I find him? Lucy asked. He's a trained blood mage. I just discovered my alpha abilities hours ago. I'm not ready to. You don't have to fight him, Lincoln interrupted. Just find him. Learn where he's hiding. What he's planning. And report back. Through the bond, Lucy felt what he wasn't saying. I can't lose you, but I can't protect you if I'm questioning everyone here. This is the only way to keep you safe while still moving forward. She wanted to argue. Wanted to insist they stay together. But he was right. Luca had spent 3 years studying her. He knew how she thought, how she moved, how she reacted to threats. But she'd been in survival mode that whole time, hiding, healing, learning. She'd never truly hunted before Lincoln taught her. And now she had abilities Luca didn't know about. Alpha instincts awakening. A bond the most powerful wolf in 5 territories. Skills she'd honed in secret. Maybe she could track him. Maybe she was the only one who could. How long do I have? Lucy asked. 48 hours, Lincoln said. After that, I'm coming after you whether you've found him or not. 48 hours, Lucy agreed. And Lincoln, she gripped his hand, be careful with the interrogations. If the traitor feels cornered, they might do something desperate. I'll have my best enforcers present for every questioning, he promised. No one will be alone with me. No one will have the opportunity to strike. They stood there for a moment, forehead to forehead, the bond between them glowing softly in the dim light. I love you, Lucy whispered. I love you, Lincoln echoed. Come back to me. Always. 2 hours later. Lucy stood at the edge of the forest, dressed in hunting leathers, a pack slung over her shoulder. The moon hung heavy and full overhead, bathing everything in silver light. Behind her, the compound buzzed with controlled chaos, enforcers organizing questioning schedules, wolves being separated into groups, the Reformation machinery grinding into motion. In front of her, the forest stretched dark and endless. And somewhere in that darkness, Luca was waiting. Lucy closed her eyes and drew on the bond. Even miles apart, She could feel Lincoln's steady presence, an anchor in the storm. His strength flowed into her, and hers into him. "You've got this," his voice whispered through their connection. "I've got this," she affirmed. She knelt beside the gray cloak, pressing her palm to the fabric. Her alpha senses flared to life, sharper than they'd ever been, awakened fully by the crisis. The scent hit her immediately. Blood and copper, yes. But underneath, something familiar. Something that made her stomach turn. Pine and leather. The same combination she'd smelled in the council chambers 8 years ago when her parents had met with the elders to discuss her future. The traitor had been there that day. Had heard every word. Had known exactly when and where her parents would travel to finalize the bloodline suppression ritual. Lucy's hands clenched into fists. Focus. She needed to focus. She followed the scent trail into the forest, her enhanced senses picking up details she'd never noticed before, the way Luca's footsteps disturbed the undergrowth, the magical residue clinging to branches, the faint whisper of power that marked his passage. He wasn't trying to hide his trail. He wanted her to follow. The realization should have made her turn back. Should have made her wait for reinforcements. But Lucy kept walking. Because she understood something about Luca now. Something she'd learned from her own trauma. He wasn't just studying suffering, he was recreating it. Trying to understand the pain that had shaped him by inflicting it on others. He'd lost his mother, been declared dead by his father, raised by monsters who fed on anguish. He was broken. Just like she'd been broken. The difference was Lucy had chosen healing. Had chosen love. Had chosen to transform her pain into strength rather than weaponizing it against others. And maybe, just maybe, she could reach the part of Luca that still remembered what it meant to be whole. "Or you're walking into a trap," a cynical voice whispered in her mind. Probably both, Lucy admitted. The trail led deeper into the forest, past the territorial markers, past the safe zones, into the wild lands where only rogues and exiles dared tread. And then, suddenly, the trail ended. Lucy stopped at the edge of a clearing, her instincts screaming danger. In the center of the clearing stood a cabin. Old. Weathered. But not abandoned. Smoke curled from the chimney, and candlelight flickered in the windows. And on the door, carved in fresh wood, was the symbol from the cloak. A raven with 3 eyes. Lucy's hand moved to the blade at her hip, a gift from Lincoln, silver-edged and sharp enough to cut through bone. She approached slowly, every sense on high alert. The door swung open before she reached it. "I was wondering when you'd arrive," Luca said, leaning against the door frame with casual elegance. He'd changed clothes, no longer wearing the gray cloak, but a simple black shirt and pants that made him look disturbingly normal. "Though I'm disappointed Lincoln didn't come with you. I was hoping for a family reunion." "He's busy," Lucy said, stopping 10 feet away. "Questioning the traitor you planted in the pack." "Ah, yes. The traitor." Luca's smile was mocking. "Have you figured out who it is yet?" "Not yet. But we will." "Will you, though?" Luca tilted his head. 8 years they've been hiding in plain sight. 8 years of perfect deception. What makes you think 48 hours will be enough to unmask them? "Because now we know to look," Lucy said. "Before, we had no reason to suspect anyone. Now every wolf in that compound knows they're under scrutiny. The traitor will slip. Make a mistake. Unless," Luca said softly, "they don't need to hide anymore." Lucy's blood chilled. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Luca said, pushing off the door frame and stepping into the moonlight, "that the traitor isn't hiding because they're afraid of being caught. They're hiding because the game isn't finished yet." He spread his arms, encompassing the clearing, the cabin, the forest beyond. "This was never about revenge on your pack, Lucy. Or about Lincoln's father's crimes. Those were just convenient motivations." His eyes gleamed. "This is about something much bigger." "Then tell me," Lucy challenged. "You said you'd give us the truth if we found the traitor. So give me something. Prove you're not just playing games." Luca studied her for a long moment, then laughed, a sound that was almost genuine. "You know what? I like you. You've got spine. Most wolves who've been through what you've been through would be cowering. But here you are, walking into the monster's den, demanding answers. He gestured to the cabin. Come inside. Let me show you something. I'm not going in there. Then you'll never understand, Luca said. And you'll go back to Lincoln with nothing but suspicions and fear. Is that what you want? Lucy's jaw clenched. Every instinct screamed trap. But she needed information. Needed to understand what Luca was planning. She followed him inside. The cabin was surprisingly well kept, shelves lined with books, a fire crackling in the hearth, a table covered in maps and documents. And on the walls, Lucy's breath caught. Photographs. Hundreds of them. Her parents. Her as a child. Her at 15. Her in the council chambers. Her running through the snow the night she fled. Her with Lincoln. Their wedding. Their private moments. You've been watching me my entire life, Lucy whispered. Not just you, Luca said. He moved to a different wall, this one covered with images of Lincoln. I've been watching my brother too. Documenting his reign. His choices. His attempts to be better than our father. He turned back to Lucy, and his expression had shifted, less mocking, more melancholic. Do you know what it's like, he said quietly, to watch your only family from the shadows? To see them live and love and build a life while you're erased from existence. No, Lucy admitted. But I know what it's like to be invisible while you're still alive. To watch everyone move on while you're stuck in the moment that broke you. Luca's eyes snapped to hers. For the first time, she saw past the madness to the pain underneath. That's why I chose you, he said. Not just because you're alpha-born. Not just because your parents were convenient targets. But because I saw myself in you. Someone who'd been abandoned. Dismissed. Left to suffer alone. But I wasn't alone, Lucy said. Lincoln found me. And I'm genuinely happy for you, Luca said, and shockingly, he seemed to mean it. You got your fairy tale ending. Your king in shining armor. Your crown and your power and your justice. He moved closer, and Lucy forced herself not to step back. But not everyone gets that ending, Lucy, he whispered. Some of us stay broken. And the world keeps spinning without us. It doesn't have to, Lucy said. Luca, you could come back. Face Lincoln honestly. Work through. Through what? Luca laughed bitterly. The fact that he killed my family? The fact that his father murdered our mother? The fact that I'm a blood mage who spent 2 decades studying trauma like a science project. You could try, Lucy insisted. No, Luca said flatly. I couldn't. Because even if Lincoln forgave me, which he wouldn't, even if the world accepted me, which it won't, I've gone too far. Done too much. There's no redemption for someone like me. He turned away, staring into the fire. But there is purpose, he continued. And that's what I'm offering you. A purpose bigger than revenge. Bigger than justice. Bigger than your little reformation. What purpose? Lucy asked warily. Luca reached into his pocket and pulled out a small vial, filled with something dark and viscous that seemed to move of its own accord. This, he said, is concentrated blood magic. Distilled from decades of collected trauma. The Shadowborn's life's work. Lucy stared at the vial, her skin crawling. What does it do? It transforms, Luca said simply. One drop can unlock latent abilities. Suppress unwanted traits. Rewrite pack bonds. Even, he paused significantly, cure bloodline suppressions that have been in place since birth. Lucy's eyes widened. You could have freed my alpha abilities at any time? Yes, Luca said. But I needed you to do it yourself. To break through your own barriers. Because magic that's given is weak. Magic that's earned, that's forged through suffering, that's permanent. He held up the vial. But this magic, this is different. This is power that can reshape the entire werewolf world. Imagine, no more rank discrimination. No more omegas treated as lesser. No more alphas who abuse their authority. Just equality. Choice. Freedom. At what cost? Lucy asked. That's the question, isn't it? Luca's smile returned. The Shadowborn believed suffering was necessary to appreciate joy. That trauma was the price of transformation. But I think, his voice softened, I think they were wrong. I think suffering is just suffering. And maybe it's time to end it. He held out the vial. Take it, he said. Study it. Show it to Lincoln. Let him decide if the price of ending all pack oppression is worth working with the monster who helped create you. Lucy stared at the vial, her mind racing. This had to be a trick. A trap. Another layer of manipulation. But what if it wasn't? What if Luca was offering genuine power, the ability to change everything they'd been fighting for? Don't trust him, Lincoln's voice whispered through the bond. He'd felt her turmoil, her temptation. I won't, Lucy promised. But we need to understand what this is. She reached out slowly and took the vial. The moment her fingers closed around it, power surged through her, dark and intoxicating and terrifying. She gasped, nearly dropping it. Careful, Luca warned. It's potent. One drop, remember. Any more and it will consume you. Lucy secured the vial in her pack with trembling hands. Why are you giving this to me? Because, Luca said, I want my brother to face the same choice our father faced. Power to change the world at the cost of his principles. Let's see if Lincoln Blackthorn is as noble as he pretends to be. This isn't a gift, Lucy said. It's a test. Everything is a test, Luca agreed. And speaking of tests, you should hurry back. The traitor is about to make their move. Lucy's blood turned to ice. What? Did you think I'd just sit here chatting while Lincoln interrogates my asset? Luca's expression turned pitying. Lucy, the traitor was always meant to be discovered. That's the point. They're going to reveal themselves spectacularly. And when they do, his smile turned vicious. They're going to take something precious from my brother. Something he can never get back. Terror shot through Lucy. What did you do? Me? Nothing. Luca spread his hands innocently. But the traitor? They've been planning their grand finale for 8 years. And it starts, he glanced at a pocket watch, right about now. Lucy didn't wait to hear more. She ran. Through the bond, she screamed Lincoln's name. And felt his response bloom with panic and rage. Something had gone catastrophically wrong at the compound. And she was too far away to stop it. Lucy's legs burned as she tore through the forest, branches whipping at her face, roots threatening to trip her with every step. Her alpha speed had never been fully tested, but tonight, fueled by terror and the desperate pull of the bond, she moved like lightning given form. Through the connection, she felt Lincoln's emotions in chaotic flashes, shock, rage, betrayal, pain. Lincoln! She screamed through the bond. What's happening? His response came fragmented, like he was fighting to maintain the connection. Ambush, enforcers down, traitor revealed, Lucy, stay away, it's... The bond shattered. Not broke. Not weakened. Shattered, like glass exploding under pressure. Lucy stumbled, hitting the ground hard as agony ripped through her chest. The absence of Lincoln's presence felt like losing a limb, like having her heart carved out and thrown into darkness. Lincoln! She screamed his name aloud, her voice echoing through the empty forest. Nothing. The bond was gone. Blood magic. It had to be. Only blood magic could sever a completed mate bond, and even then, only temporarily. But the pain was real, the emptiness crushing. He's alive, she told herself fiercely, forcing her body to move. He has to be alive. I'd feel it if he died. I'd know. But would she? With the bond severed? Lucy pushed the thought away and ran faster. She burst through the compound gates 15 minutes later, a journey that should have taken an hour. Her lungs screamed, her muscles trembled, but she didn't slow. The main courtyard was chaos. Wolves scattered in panic, some shifted, some not, all fleeing from the banquet hall. Smoke poured from the windows. Flames licked at the doorframe. And the screaming. Lucy grabbed the nearest wolf, a young Omega she vaguely recognized. What happened? The queen, she the elder, The Omega babbled incoherently, tears streaming down her face. Bomb, magic, everyone inside. Lucy shoved past her and sprinted toward the burning hall. Enforcers tried to stop her. Your Majesty, it's not safe. She didn't slow. Didn't answer. Just moved. The heat hit her like a physical wall when she reached the entrance. The doors had been blown off their hinges, the interior an inferno of red and orange and black smoke, so thick she couldn't see 5 feet ahead. Lincoln. She plunged into the flames. Her alpha blood provided some protection, her skin resistant to the heat that would have blistered a normal wolf. But the smoke was suffocating, filling her lungs, making every breath agony. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? A hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed her arm. Lucy spun, claws extending. Lucy. Beta Cade's face emerged from the smoke, soot-streaked and desperate. You can't be here. The whole structure is coming down. Where is Lincoln? She demanded. The throne room. He's trapped, Elder Margot. Cade's voice broke. She was the traitor. She detonated a blood magic explosive during questioning. The blast took out half the enforcers and brought down the support beams. Lincoln's trapped under the rubble with. Lucy didn't wait for him to finish. She tore free and ran deeper into the inferno, following the bond, or the memory of the bond, the phantom sensation that pulled her toward where Lincoln should be. The throne room was devastated. The ceiling had partially collapsed, massive wooden beams crisscrossed like a deadly puzzle. Bodies lay scattered, enforcers, council members, wolves who'd been too close when the explosion hit. Some moved weakly. Others didn't move at all. And there, in the center of the destruction, pinned beneath a beam as thick as a tree trunk. Lincoln. He was conscious, barely. Blood streamed from a gash on his forehead, his breathing shallow, his silver eyes unfocused. But when he heard her voice, they sharpened. Lucy, he rasped. No. Get out. The building. I'm not leaving you. She grabbed the beam, trying to lift it. It didn't budge. Tons of wood and stone, immovable. You have to, Lincoln said, and through their severed bond, she felt his desperate love. Lucy, please. The whole hall is going to collapse. Save yourself. Save the pack. Shut up. She pulled harder, her alpha strength surging. The beam shifted an inch. 2 inches. I didn't survive everything I survived just to lose you now. Lucy. A voice cut through the roar of flames. Touching. Truly. Lucy spun. Elder Margot stood at the far end of the throne room, untouched by fire, her weathered face illuminated by the flames. But her eyes weren't the tired gray Lucy remembered. They were red, glowing with blood magic. You, Lucy breathed. Me, Margot confirmed. Her voice had changed too, younger, stronger, layered with power that didn't belong in an elderly wolf's body. Surprised? You shouldn't be. I told you I helped your parents hide your bloodline. I just didn't mention I was the one who told Luca about it afterward. Lucy's hands clenched into fists. Why? Why? Margot laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Because your parents were fools. They had alpha-born power in their bloodline and they wanted to hide it. To suppress it. To pretend they were ordinary. She stepped closer, and the flames seemed to part around her. I spent 50 years serving this pack. Following orders. Bowing to alphas who weren't half as powerful as I could have been if I'd been born into the right bloodline. Her expression twisted with ancient bitterness. So when the Shadowborn offered me power, real power, in exchange for information, I took it. You killed my parents, Lucy said, her voice deadly quiet. I gave Luca the information. He killed them. Margot shrugged. Semantics. And Garrett? You manipulated him into attacking me. Luca did that part. But I made sure you were alone. Made sure no one would believe you afterward. Made sure you'd be exiled. Margot's smile was cruel. I needed you broken, you see. Luca's research required it. And you performed beautifully. Lucy's vision went red. Her alpha power surged, and for the first time, she felt it fully, not just awakened, but unleashed. Golden light blazed from her eyes, and the air around her began to shimmer with heat that had nothing to do with the fire. "You're going to die tonight," Lucy said quietly. "Am I?" Margot gestured, and blood magic flared, red tendrils lashing toward Lucy like living whips. Lucy dodged, her alpha speed making the world slow to a crawl. She moved between the tendrils, closing the distance, her claws extending. But Margot was faster than any elder should be, enhanced by decades of stolen power. She met Lucy's strike with one of her own, their clash sending shockwaves through the burning hall. "You're strong," Margot admitted, circling. "Stronger than I expected. But you're also soft. You care about these wolves. About your mate. About justice." Another tendril lashed out, and this time Lucy couldn't dodge. It wrapped around her ankle and yanked, slamming her into the rubble. Pain exploded through Lucy's ribs. She gasped, struggling to rise. "I don't have those weaknesses," Margot continued, stalking closer. "I care about nothing but power. And tonight, I'm going to take yours." She raised her hand, blood magic coalescing into a blade. A roar shook the hall. Lincoln. Somehow, impossibly, he'd gotten the beam off himself. Blood poured from a dozen wounds. His body was broken in places that should have left him immobile, but he was standing. And his eyes blazed with alpha fury that made Margot take an involuntary step back. "You hurt my mate," Lincoln said, his voice barely human. "You betrayed my trust. You murdered innocents." He took a step forward, and despite his injuries, the movement was predatory. Lethal. "And now," he continued, "you're going to learn what happens when you threaten what's mine." Lincoln shifted. Not into his wolf form, into something between. A hybrid form that shouldn't be possible, that only the oldest and most powerful alphas could achieve. His bones cracked and reformed, his size doubling, his features becoming lupin while retaining human intelligence. And the power that rolled off him made the flames themselves bow away. Margot's confidence cracked. "No. You shouldn't be able to. The blood magic severed your bond. You should be weak." "You can't sever what was forged in survival," Lincoln growled. "You can't break what was built on choice." He moved faster than thought, and his claws raked across Margot's chest. She screamed, blood magic flaring defensively, but Lincoln didn't stop. Didn't slow. He was relentless, each strike calculated, each movement pushing her back toward the flames. Lucy struggled to her feet, watching in awe and terror as her mate fought with a ferocity she'd never witnessed. But Margot wasn't finished. With a shriek of rage, she detonated her remaining blood magic, a wave of pure destructive force that sent Lincoln flying backward. He crashed through a wall, disappearing into smoke and rubble. "Lincoln." Lucy lunged for Margot, but the elder was already moving, pulling a vial from her robes. The same dark, viscous liquid Luca had shown Lucy. "If I can't have power," Margot snarled, "I'll make sure no one does." She raised the vial to her lips. Lucy's hand shot out, the silver blade Lincoln had given her flashing in the firelight. It flew true, severing Margot's hand at the wrist. The elder's scream was inhuman. The vial shattered on the ground, its contents spreading like living shadow. Where it touched, the flames turned black. The air grew frigid. And something began to emerge from the liquid. "What did you do?" Lucy demanded. "Concentrated blood magic," Margot gasped, cradling her bleeding stump. "Pure trauma. Undiluted suffering. It will consume everything, the compound, the pack, the entire territory." Lucy stared at the spreading darkness, at the thing taking shape within it. She could feel it pulling at her mind, trying to drag up every painful memory, every trauma, every moment of suffering she'd ever experienced. And she understood. This was what the Shadowborn had been building toward. Not a weapon to control wolves, a weapon to destroy them. To turn their own pain against them until there was nothing left but madness and despair. Behind her, Lincoln emerged from the rubble, limping but alive. He saw the spreading darkness and his expression went grim. Lucy, he said quietly. We need to run. Now. We can't, Lucy said. It'll spread. It'll kill everyone. Then what? Lucy pulled out the vial Luca had given her. The one she'd tucked into her pack. The gift he'd offered. One drop can unlock latent abilities, he'd said. Any more and it will consume you. She understood now what he'd really been offering. Not a gift. Not a test. A choice. The same choice he'd made when he embraced the Shadowborn's teachings instead of fighting them. She could use the blood magic to fight blood magic. Could match darkness with darkness. Could become exactly what Luca was: powerful, broken, dangerous. Or she could find another way. Lucy, Lincoln said, limping to her side. Whatever you're thinking, don't. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Lucy said softly. She looked at him, her mate, her king, her choice, and smiled. But I'm not going to use blood magic. Then what? Lucy turned to face the spreading darkness, and she did something she'd never tried before. She reached for the bond. The severed bond. The shattered connection that should have been impossible to touch. And she pulled. Not with blood magic. Not with Alpha Command. But with love. With trust. With the memory of every moment they'd shared, every choice they'd made, every time they'd chosen each other over fear. The bond responded. Not fully. Not completely. But enough, a thread of golden light connecting her heart to Lincoln's across the darkness. And through that thread, she felt his power join with hers. Lucy, Lincoln breathed. What are you doing? Something Luca never understood, she said. Suffering can transform you. But so can love. She raised her hands, and golden light blazed from her palms. Lincoln stepped up beside her, his hybrid form towering, his own silver light joining hers. Together, they pushed. Their combined alpha power, amplified by their bond, strengthened by their choice to stand together, slammed into the darkness like a tidal wave of light. The darkness screamed. It thrashed. It fought. It tried to pull them in, to drown them in trauma and pain and suffering. But Lucy had walked through suffering, had been broken by it, had chosen to heal from it. And that choice, that decision to transform pain into strength, trauma into wisdom, suffering into empathy, was more powerful than any magic. The darkness began to dissolve. Inch by inch, foot by foot, the black flames turned gold. The spreading corruption reversed. And the thing trying to emerge, the manifestation of pure trauma, shattered like glass. When it was over, the throne room was silent except for the crackle of normal flames and the groaning of weakened beams. Lucy collapsed. Lincoln caught her, his hybrid form fading back to human as they sank to the ground together. The bond between them flared back to full strength, no longer severed, but reinforced. Tempered by what they'd just survived. We did it, Lucy whispered. You did it, Lincoln corrected. He pressed his forehead to hers. You saved us all. We saved each other, she said. That's how it works. A weak cough drew their attention. Margot lay nearby, her body broken, her life fading. The blood magic that had sustained her for decades was gone, burned away by the light. Without it, she was just an old wolf facing death. Lucy crawled over to her, and despite everything, there was pity in her eyes. Why? Lucy asked. Why choose this? Why waste your entire life on revenge and power? Margot's laugh was bitter and wet. Because I was taught that power was the only thing that mattered. That suffering was weakness. That showing mercy was failure. Her red eyes, fading back to gray now, found Lucy's. You proved me wrong, Margot whispered. You turned suffering into strength, into love, into... She didn't finish. The light faded from her eyes, and Elder Margot, traitor, murderer, victim of her own choices, died surrounded by the flames she'd created. Lucy closed Margot's eyes gently, then let Lincoln help her to her feet. Around them, the hall continued to burn. But outside, she could hear wolves returning, enforcers organizing, healers arriving, the pack mobilizing to save what could be saved. We need to get out, Lincoln said, before the rest of the ceiling comes down. Wait, Lucy said. She moved to where the vial had shattered, where the blood magic had pooled. Nothing remained but ash. It's gone, she said softly. All of it. The blood magic. The Shadowborn's weapon. Everything they built. Not everything, a familiar voice said. Lucy and Lincoln spun. Luca stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the flames. But his expression wasn't triumphant. It was sad. You destroyed it, he said quietly. Decades of research. The culmination of everything the Shadowborn worked for. Gone in minutes. Good, Lincoln growled. Is it though? Luca asked. He stepped closer, and for the first time, Lucy saw him without the mask of madness. Just a man. Broken. Lost. That magic could have changed the world. Could have ended pack hierarchies. Could have made everyone equal. At the cost of weaponizing trauma, Lucy said. That's not equality, Luca. That's slavery to pain. Then what's the alternative? Luca's voice cracked. How do you change a world built on suffering without using the only language it understands? You start with one choice, Lucy said. She held out her hand, not threatening, not commanding. Offering. You choose to heal instead of harm. To build instead of destroy. To stand with people instead of studying them. Luca stared at her hand like it was a foreign object. I've done terrible things, he whispered. So have I, Lucy said. I killed your father's ally. I let rage guide me. I almost used blood magic tonight to fight fire with fire. But you didn't. No, Lucy agreed. I chose differently. And I'm offering you the same choice. Luca's hand trembled as it reached toward hers. A beam crashed down between them, forcing them apart. The hall groaned, the entire structure beginning its final collapse. We have to go, Lincoln shouted. Luca looked at the burning hall, at his brother and sister-in-law, at the choice before him. And then, shockingly, he smiled. A real smile, sad and genuine. I'm glad you found each other, he said. Truly. You're what I could have been. If I'd made different choices. It's not too late, Lucy started. It is for me, Luca said. But maybe not for others. Maybe that's enough. He turned and walked back toward the flames, pulling something from his pocket, a small book, leather-bound and ancient. This is everything, he called back. Every Shadowborn technique. Every blood magic formula. Every wolf they manipulated. He threw the book toward them. Use it to find the others. To stop them before they finish what we started. Luca. Lincoln's voice held something Lucy had never heard before, hope. But Luca was already disappearing into the smoke. Tell our mother I'm sorry, he shouted. And Lincoln, be better than our father. Be better than me. Be the Alpha King the world needs. The ceiling collapsed with a roar of flame and fury. Lucy and Lincoln ran, the book clutched in Lincoln's hand, barely making it out as the entire banquet hall came crashing down. They stood in the courtyard, smoke-stained and bleeding, holding each other as their pack gathered around them, battered but alive, broken but healing. Is he? Lucy couldn't finish. I don't know, Lincoln said quietly. But if he survived, we'll find him. We'll give him that choice again. And if he didn't? Lincoln pulled her close, the bond between them thrumming with love and loss and hope and grief all tangled together. Then we honor his sacrifice, he said. We use what he gave us. And we make sure no one else has to choose between becoming a monster and dying alone. Lucy nodded against his chest. Around them, the pack began the work of rebuilding, pulling injured from rubble, organizing healers, counting losses, mourning the dead. Elder Margot. 12 enforcers. 5 council members. Countless others wounded. But they'd survived. The traitor was dead. The blood magic destroyed. The Shadowborn's weapon neutralized. And Lucy and Lincoln stood together, Alpha Queen and Alpha King, mates and partners, survivors and healers. What do we do now? Lucy asked. Lincoln looked at the compound, at the wolves working together despite rank and past grievances, at the future they'd fought so hard to secure. Now, he said, we keep our promises. We reform this pack. We hunt down the remaining Shadowborn. We build something better. He tilted her face up, his thumb brushing her cheek. And we do it together. Always together. Always, Lucy agreed. They kissed as the sun began to rise over the smoking ruins, a new day dawning on a pack that had been broken and was choosing, moment by moment, to heal. 6 months later, the new council chamber smelled of fresh cedar and possibility. Lucy stood at the window, watching the sun set over the compound rebuilt from its ashes, redesigned to reflect the pack they were becoming rather than the pack they'd been. The rigid hierarchy of separated quarters was gone, replaced by communal spaces where alphas and omegas worked side by side. The old throne room, with its imposing seats of power, had been transformed into a circular meeting hall where every voice carried equal weight. Your Majesty? Lucy turned to find Omega Kayla standing in the doorway, clutching a stack of reports. 6 months ago, she'd been spreading poison disguised as concern. Now she served as the PAC's liaison officer, a position Lucy had created specifically to ensure that marginalized voices were heard in leadership decisions. How many times do I have to tell you to call me Lucy? She said with a gentle smile. Kayla's lips quirked. At least a dozen more, apparently. Old habits. She stepped inside, setting the reports on the table. The integration report from the Eastern Territories. Alpha Theo says the new protection protocols are working. 3 assault allegations investigated externally in the past month, all 3 resolved with justice for the victims. 3 cases, Lucy murmured, her heart aching even as pride filled her chest. 3 wolves who might have suffered in silence under the old system. But didn't, Kayla said firmly. Because of what you built here. Because of what you and the king proved was possible. Lucy took the report, scanning the details. The Reformation decree had spread like wildfire across all 5 territories, some packs embracing it willingly, others requiring more persuasion from the Alpha King's authority. But the foundation was solid now. External oversight. Trauma-informed training. Protection regardless of rank. It wasn't perfect. Change never was. But it was better. There's one more thing, Kayla said hesitantly. She pulled a sealed envelope from her pocket. This arrived by courier an hour ago. No return address. But it's marked with. Lucy's breath caught as she saw the seal. A raven with 3 eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she took it, breaking the wax and unfolding the letter inside. Dear sister-in-law. I survived. You probably guessed that. Lincoln definitely did. I can feel him searching for me even now through whatever mysterious alpha tracking methods he uses. I'm not ready to come back yet. Maybe I never will be. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying. Trying to be something other than the monster I became. Trying to understand why you chose healing when destruction felt so much easier. I found 3 other Shadowborn survivors. Young ones who were children when Lincoln's father attacked. They're as broken as I am, maybe more so. But I'm teaching them what you taught me. That suffering doesn't have to be weaponized. That trauma can be transformed. It's slow work. Some days I fail spectacularly. Some days I want to burn the world down again just to feel something other than this crushing guilt. But then I remember the look on your face when you offered me your hand. When you chose mercy over vengeance. And I think, maybe there's hope for monsters who want to stop being monstrous. Tell Lincoln I'm sorry. For everything. And tell him I'm proud to be his brother. Even if I never earn the right to say it to his face. Take care of each other. The world needs what you've built. L. P.S. There are 12 Shadowborn still active. The book I gave you will help you find them. But be careful, the oldest ones make me look like an amateur. They won't go quietly. Lucy read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and tucked it into her pocket. Good news? Kayla asked carefully. Complicated news, Lucy said. But yes. Good. The door opened again, and Lincoln entered, tall and commanding as always, but softer somehow. 6 months of rebuilding had sanded down some of his harder edges, revealed the man beneath the Alpha King's armor. His eyes found Lucy's immediately, the bond between them humming with warmth and recognition. You felt that, she said. Not a question. Your emotional spike? Yes. He crossed to her, his hand finding hers automatically. What happened? She showed him the letter. Lincoln read it in silence, his jaw working, silver eyes flickering with a complex storm of emotions. When he finished, he set it down carefully and pulled Lucy into his arms. He's alive, Lincoln murmured into her hair. My brother is alive and he's trying. He is, Lucy agreed. And we'll find him eventually. But maybe we let him come to us when he's ready, Lincoln finished. I know. It's just hard to wait, Lucy said. I know. They stood there for a long moment, drawing strength from each other the way they'd learned to do, through touch, through the bond, through the simple act of choosing to face challenges together. Kayla cleared her throat delicately. I'll just leave you two alone. Actually, Lincoln said, releasing Lucy but keeping her hand in his stay. I want you to hear this too. He moved to the table and spread out a map, the 5 territories marked with colored pins representing reformed packs, resistant packs, and neutral territories still evaluating. We've successfully reformed 70% of the packs, he said. The other 30% are either actively resisting or playing a waiting game to see if we'll give up. We won't, Lucy said firmly. No, we won't, Lincoln agreed. But we need to be strategic. The older alphas, the ones who built their power on the old hierarchies, they're not going to surrender that power willingly. So, what do you suggest? Kayla asked. I suggest, Lincoln said, his expression turning predatory in the way that reminded everyone why he was called the Alpha King, that we make it extremely uncomfortable to be the kind of alpha who abuses their authority. Lucy's smile matched his. I'm listening. Economic sanctions for packs that refuse oversight. Travel restrictions for alphas with documented violations. And he pulled out another document, a new law. The Lucy Provision. Lucy's eyebrows rose. You're naming a law after me? After what you survived, Lincoln corrected gently. It mandates that any wolf who reports assault or abuse receives automatic protection, including relocation, financial support, and legal representation, regardless of rank or pack politics. Tears pricked Lucy's eyes. Lincoln, you shouldn't have had to run into a blizzard to escape, he said fiercely. No wolf should ever have to choose between seeking help and certain death. This law ensures they won't. Kayla was openly crying now. Your Majesty, Lucy, this will save lives. Countless lives. That's the idea, Lucy said, her voice thick with emotion. When does it take effect? I'm signing it tonight, Lincoln said. At the full moon gathering. In front of all the territorial alphas. They'll witness it. They'll agree to it. Or they'll answer to me. The threat in his voice was very real. And Lucy loved him for it. That evening, the full moon gathering was nothing like the Moonfall Banquet had been. Where before there'd been rigid formality and hidden tensions, now there was cautious optimism. Wolves from different packs mingled freely, sharing stories and strategies for implementing the Reformation. Omegas spoke without fear. Betas challenged alpha decisions without risking exile. It wasn't perfect, old prejudices died hard, but it was progress. Lucy stood on the platform beside Lincoln, dressed in silver and gold, her alpha mark visible and proud. The crown on her head was new, not the heavy, ostentatious thing previous queens had worn, but a simple circlet of moonstone and silver that caught the light when she moved. Below them, hundreds of wolves gathered, waiting to witness history. Lincoln raised his hand and silence fell. 6 months ago, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the gathering. This pack nearly destroyed itself. Secrets festered. Trauma went unaddressed. Justice was denied to those who needed it most. His eyes found Lucy's, and the love there was undisguised. But one wolf, broken by the system, exiled by those who should have protected her, survived. And in surviving, she showed us all what true strength looks like. He gestured to Lucy, inviting her forward. She stepped up, her heart pounding, very aware of hundreds of eyes on her. 6 months ago, this would have terrified her. Now, she drew strength from it. I'm not special, she said clearly. I'm not uniquely brave or strong or resilient. I'm just a wolf who refused to let trauma define me, who chose healing over hatred, who found someone, she glanced at Lincoln, who saw my worth when I couldn't see it myself. She looked out at the crowd, finding faces she recognized. Wolves who'd failed her. Wolves who'd judged her. Wolves who'd learned better. But I'm also proof, she continued, that systems can change. That packs can evolve. That we don't have to keep repeating the same cycles of abuse and silence just because that's how it's always been. She held up the document Lincoln had prepared. Tonight, the Alpha King is signing the Lucy provision into law. But this isn't about me. It's about every wolf who's suffered in silence. Every Omega who's been dismissed. Every victim who's been blamed for their own assault. Her voice grew stronger, more commanding. From this day forward, seeking help will not be a death sentence. Speaking truth will not be a betrayal. And rank, she let her alpha power flare, gold light blazing from her eyes, will never again determine who deserves protection. The crowd erupted. Not in applause, not yet. In howls. Hundreds of wolves lifting their voices to the full moon, acknowledging the law, accepting the change, choosing to be part of something better. Lincoln signed the document with a flourish, then held it up for all to see. The Lucy provision is now law, he declared. Any alpha who violates it answers to me. Any pack that refuses to implement it loses their territorial rights. This is not negotiable. This is not optional. This is justice. The howls intensified. And Lucy felt it, through the bond, through her alpha senses, through the very air, the pack structure shifting. Old hierarchies cracking. New connections forming. It would take years to fully transform. Decades, maybe. But the foundation was solid. Later that night, Lucy and Lincoln stood on the balcony of their private quarters, watching the celebration below. Wolves danced and sang and celebrated not just the new law, but the hope it represented. We did it, Lucy said softly. We're doing it, Lincoln corrected. This is just the beginning. I know. She leaned into his warmth. The Shadowborn are still out there. There are packs that will resist. There are wolves who'll try to undermine everything we've built. Yes, Lincoln agreed. But now we're not fighting alone. We have allies. We have a system that works. He turned her to face him, each other. He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. The bond between them sang with joy and love and absolute certainty. When they broke apart, Lucy rested her forehead against his. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Finding me in that blizzard? Everything that came after. Never, Lincoln said fiercely. You're the best choice I ever made. The best thing that ever happened to me. And I would do it all again, the pain, the danger, the reformations, 1,000 times over if it meant having you by my side. Even though I came with a psychotic brother-in-law and a pack full of trauma? Lincoln laughed, a real laugh, full and genuine. Especially because of that. Life was boring before you, Lucy. Now it's chaotic? Meaningful, he corrected. Now it matters. Now every day is a choice to build something better. And I get to build it with you. Through the bond, Lucy felt his absolute sincerity. Felt his love wrapping around her like armor and comfort all at once. I love you, she whispered. I love you, he echoed. Always. A knock on the door interrupted the moment. Beta Cade stood there, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, Your Majesties, but there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. Who? Lincoln asked, his protective instincts immediately engaging. He wouldn't give his name, Cade said. But he's wearing a gray cloak, and he says, Cade paused, looking uncomfortable. He says to tell you he's ready to stop running. Lucy and Lincoln exchanged a glance. Luca, they said simultaneously. They found him in the garden, hood down, face exposed, looking more exhausted than dangerous. When he saw them, he didn't smile. Didn't crack jokes. Just stood there, vulnerable and uncertain. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said before either of them could speak. I don't deserve it. But I needed to tell you that I'm going to turn myself in. Face judgment for what I've done. Luca, Lincoln started. I've spent 6 months trying to heal on my own, Luca interrupted. Trying to outrun what I am. But I can't. The guilt is eating me alive. And if there's any chance, any possibility, that facing consequences might help me actually become someone worth being, then I have to try. Lucy stepped forward. What changed? Luca's expression twisted. I found one of the wolves I hurt. A young Omega I used in my research 5 years ago. And I saw, his voice broke, I saw what I'd done to her. How my observation had destroyed her sense of safety. And I realized I've been lying to myself. Calling it research. Calling it understanding. But it was just cruelty. He met Lincoln's eyes. I'm my father's son, he said quietly. Not the father you knew. The one who murdered our mother. The one who built his power on violence. And if I don't stop now, if I don't face what I've become, I'll end up just like him. Lincoln looked at his brother, really looked at him, and saw not the monster he'd been hunting, but the frightened child who'd been declared dead and raised by darkness. You're also my brother, Lincoln said. And that means something. It means you deserve a chance to choose differently, Lucy added. The same chance I was given. Luca's composure cracked. How can you, after everything, how can you still offer me mercy? Because, Lucy said gently, I know what it's like to be defined by your worst moment. And I know what it's like to have someone believe you can be more. She held out her hand again, the same gesture she'd made 6 months ago in a burning hall. This time, Luca took it. I'll face trial, he said. I'll accept whatever judgment the council decides. But, he looked between them, can I ask one thing? What? Lincoln asked. Let me help you find the other Shadowborn first, Luca said. Let me use what I know to stop them before they hurt anyone else. Then I'll submit to justice. Lucy looked at Lincoln. Through the bond, they communicated in the silent language they'd developed over 6 months of partnership. It's a risk, Lincoln thought. Everything worth doing is, Lucy answered. You trust him? I trust that he wants to change. And I think that's enough to start with. Lincoln nodded slowly. Fine. You help us dismantle the Shadowborn network. But you do it under supervision. My enforcers. My rules. And the moment you step out of line, you'll do what you should have done 6 months ago, Luca finished. I know. I accept. He looked at them both, his brother and the sister-in-law who'd shown him more compassion than he deserved. Thank you, he whispered. For seeing something in me worth saving. That's what family does, Lucy said simply. And for the first time in 20 years, the 3 of them stood together, not as enemies, not as hunter and hunted, but as something new. Something that looked almost like hope. 1 year later, the trial of Luca Blackthorne lasted 3 days. He confessed to everything, the manipulation, the surveillance, the role he'd played in Lucy's attack and her parents' deaths. He named every Shadowborn he'd worked with, revealed every technique they'd used, dismantled the network from the inside out. And when the council asked what sentence he thought he deserved, he said simply, whatever helps the people I hurt heal. The council deliberated for hours. In the end, they sentenced him to 20 years of service, working with trauma survivors, helping implement protection protocols, using his knowledge of blood magic to develop defenses against it. 20 years of choosing healing over harm. 20 years of proving he could be more than his worst choices. Lucy and Lincoln visited him the day the sentence was announced. 20 years, Luca said. I can work with that. You'll have help, Lucy said. Therapists. Mentors. People who've walked similar paths. And us, Lincoln added. You're my brother. I'm not giving up on you. Luca's eyes glistened. I don't deserve. None of us deserve the grace we're given, Lucy interrupted. But we accept it anyway. And then we try to be worthy of it. She touched the mark on her collarbone, Lincoln's claim, visible and proud. A year ago, I was broken, she said. 6 months ago, I was fighting for survival. She glanced at Lincoln, and her smile was radiant. I'm happy. Building a life I never thought I'd have. And you can too. It won't be easy, Lucas said. Nothing worth doing is, Lincoln said. But you won't be alone. And he wasn't. Over the next months and years, Luca slowly, painfully rebuilt himself. There were setbacks. Days when the darkness felt too heavy. Days when the guilt threatened to consume him. But there were also victories. Wolves he helped. Systems he improved. Moments when he looked in the mirror and saw not a monster, but a work in progress. As for Lucy and Lincoln, they continued the work of transformation. Pack by pack. Law by law. Choice by choice. They found and rehabilitated the remaining Shadowborn, some willing to change, some requiring more permanent solutions. They expanded the Reformation across all territories, creating a network of support that transcended pack boundaries. They built schools for trauma-informed leadership, sanctuaries for wolves fleeing abuse, courts where justice was dispensed based on evidence rather than rank. And through it all, they chose each other. Every morning, every challenge, every victory and defeat. They chose love. 5 years later, Lucy stood in the same garden where she'd first offered Luca her hand, watching the sun set over a pack transformed. She was pregnant, just beginning to show, her hand resting protectively over the life growing within her. Their first child. A daughter, if the healers were right. A daughter who would grow up in a world where rank didn't determine worth. Where trauma was met with support rather than judgment. Where wolves were taught that strength came in many forms, including the courage to be vulnerable. Lincoln appeared behind her, his arms wrapping around her, his hand covering hers over their child. What are you thinking? He murmured. That 5 years ago, I was running through a blizzard, convinced I was going to die, Lucy said. And now I'm standing in a garden with you, carrying our child, watching a pack that once tried to destroy me thrive under our leadership. Funny how life works, Lincoln said. Funny how choices work, Lucy corrected. Every moment could have gone differently. If you hadn't found me. If I hadn't agreed to marry you. If we hadn't chosen to fight together. But we did choose, Lincoln said. Every time. We chose each other. We chose justice. We chose to believe things could be better. And they are, Lucy said softly. They really are. In the distance, wolves gathered for the evening meal, alphas and omegas sitting together, sharing stories, building friendships that transcended old hierarchies. Luca was among them, teaching a group of young wolves about blood magic defenses, his expression serious but peaceful. Beta Cade led a training session for new council members, emphasizing empathy and evidence-based decision-making. Omega Kayla organized a support group for assault survivors, creating the safe space she wished had existed years ago. And throughout it all, woven into every interaction, every choice, every moment, was the legacy Lucy and Lincoln had built together. A legacy not of power, but of healing. Not of domination, but of partnership. Not of trauma weaponized, but of suffering transformed. What do we tell her? Lucy asked, touching her belly. Our daughter. When she's old enough to understand. What do we tell her about how we came together? Lincoln was quiet for a moment, considering. We tell her the truth, he said finally. That her mother was broken, but refused to stay broken. That her father was powerful, but learned that real strength comes from vulnerability. That we found each other in darkness and chose to create light. He turned Lucy to face him, his hands cupping her face with infinite tenderness. We tell her that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing someone every single day, especially when it's hard. We tell her that justice is a journey, not a destination. That healing is possible. That change, real change, starts with one wolf deciding to do better. Tears streamed down Lucy's face. And if she asks if we'd do it all again? All the pain, all the danger, all the impossible choices. Lincoln's smile was everything love and certainty and absolute conviction. We tell her yes, he said. 1,000 times yes. Because every moment of suffering, every tear, every fear, it all led us here. To each other. To this life. To her. He kissed Lucy as the full moon rose over the compound, bathing them in silver light. And in that moment, surrounded by a pack they'd reformed, a family they'd chosen, a future they'd built from the ashes of trauma, Lucy understood something profound. The slap that had shattered her world had also saved it, because it had revealed the traitor, awakened her power, brought Lincoln's fury and love crashing down on everyone who'd failed her. It had set in motion a chain of events that transformed not just one pack, but an entire network of territories. And most importantly, it had proven something she'd always suspected but never quite believed. That surviving wasn't the same as living. That healing wasn't weakness, but the bravest form of strength. That love, real, chosen, fought for love, could overcome even the darkest trauma. Lucy pulled back from the kiss and smiled at her mate, her king, her choice. "I love you," she said. "I love you," Lincoln echoed. "From the moment I found you in that blizzard to every moment after." "Always. Always," Lucy agreed. And as they stood there, Alpha Queen and Alpha King, survivors and healers, partners in every sense of the word, the pack they'd built celebrated around them. Because the woman they'd tried to break had become the queen who saved them all. And the man who'd been too feared to be loved had found the one wolf brave enough to see past his armor to the heart underneath. Together, they'd turned a reckoning into a reformation. Trauma into triumph. Suffering into strength. And that more than any crown, more than any title, more than any power, was the legacy they would pass to their daughter. The legacy of choosing love. Every single day. No matter what. Always. And that's it. Lucy went from broken Omega to Alpha Queen. Lincoln went from feared ruler to beloved partner. Luca found redemption. The pack was reformed. And love, real love, the kind that chooses you every day, conquered everything. Drop your favorite moment in the comments. Was it the slap that started it all? Lucy revealing her alpha blood? Lincoln's hybrid form? Luca's redemption arc? I want to hear everything. And if you loved the story, if it made you feel something, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we've got so many more emotional werewolf shifter romances coming your way. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. Thank you for reading, for staying with Lucy's journey, for believing in love that transforms. You're the best pack a storyteller could ask for. Until next time, stay fierce, stay kind, and remember, your trauma doesn't define you. Your choices do. Much love, and see you in the next story.